The following views expressed are those of the speakers and do not represent the views of DoD or its components.
Pay attention, because you are now listening to Permission to Speak Freely.
Amaury, whenever you see me on this pod and I got like some pride gear on, like some uniform hats or something like that, it's because I have enough time to do nothing else. You know what I mean? Like I just got off work. It's crazy. Like I literally just got off work. My mom on her way here. The only reason she's not here yet is because her train. She come from Philly. Her train is delayed. She gonna be here in a couple minutes. I just threw something on. You put the dry fit on. You don't got to iron the dry fit. Mm-hmm. You know, the command probably thinking like, oh, he repping the command. Nah, it wasn't nothing else to wear. You know what I mean? So, hey, it's good to have you back on though, bro. Honestly, man, it's good to have you back on.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we were doing our last episode, and it's crazy because most of the episode we were talking about your experience on a coal and how that affected you. But then at the end of the episode, we started just having like random conversation, and I feel like I was like, man, we about to get into it on here. It's about to, we about to have some good conversation on here. But episode can't last forever, and that's still one of my favorite episodes too, bro. Honestly,
I appreciate
that. So I had the pleasure, and Tish had the pleasure of reading Anchored in Resilience. Mm-hmm. I was telling you just before we started that I actually supported this book like 3 times because I bought I ain't tell you the third time. So I bought the paper book when you initially sold it. I might have bought an advanced copy because I got your signature.
Yeah, you got it from me, yes.
Yeah, I got it straight from you, right? So I bought the book, Tish, and I started reading the book. But it was like the first day that I was standing not standing. The first day that I was the C-cell at my new job. Mm-hmm. And it was, I don't normally read books, but this one was an easy enough read that I'm like, oh, this going to get me through. So, but then the job just ramped up, so it ain't work. So then when you was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a audio book, you saw me. I'm right on your Facebook like, yo, go ahead, bro, drop it. Because I'm like, because I knew I wanted, because remember I told you, I'm like, yo, when you drop the book, I want you back on. But I ain't want you back on if I ain't read the book. You know what I'm saying? So he dropped it. And then I'm like, man, I felt bad because I ain't finished Amaury book yet. And I want him on and I want to talk about the book and all that. But you dropped the audio book. 2.5 days, knocked that out. Easy. I said it on a pod when I reviewed it, the most entertaining book I read all year. Like, honestly, I think I said if I was being biased, it's a 5 out of 5. And if I was being unbiased, it's a 4.5 out of 5. But we can talk about it. But if I'm being biased for you, it's a 5. But 4.5 out of 5 is great. You know what I mean? And then, so the third way I bought the book, so I got the Apple Books app, right? And all I do is do audio books on Apple Books. So, and then they track like how many books I read throughout the year. Yeah. Since this book wasn't available, I don't think it was available on Apple. It was available on Audible, I think, right? So I listened to it on Audible. Then on Apple, the digital book was available, not the audio. So I bought the digital book on Apple and just slid my damn finger all the way to the end so that could count as another book I read. So I supported Amaury Ponciano and Anchored in Resilience 3 different ways, bro.
Much love, brother. I truly appreciate you.
Yeah, man. And if you do a doc, I'm right there. You know what I mean? And but outside of supporting her, but I'm glad me and Tish read it because we could talk through this. Outside of supporting the book, man, it was a really fun, real good experience going through it. Real fun experience listening to it. Took me back to, hey, for the listeners, I'm giddy. I'm talking a lot because I was excited about this, right? But it took me back to some of my overseas experiences. It also made me think about some experiences that I didn't have overseas that I wish I wish I would have had. It was a video recently on Instagram about this tall dude and he was walking through the DR, right? And if you know somebody, you see what they said, right? So it's this tall dude walking through the DR, right? And all the ladies they like looking at the dude. And I saw Amaury comment. He was like, man, that ain't nothing, dude. You know what I mean? He said, you go overseas, start naming countries. He said, you go overseas, that ain't nothing new.
Yes, like the video was just the Pete like talking about how he just all the girls were just like on him, like he was just so special. And I was like, tell me you don't have a passport and you haven't been somewhere without telling me you haven't been somewhere. Right? It's just what it is. Like it just, you know, as someone that came from another country myself, like we see it when, you know, like Americans will come to Dominican Republic and we be local. You know, I was a local at the time, and I just sit there so angry at, you know, no matter what color, you know, the person was, what size or whatever, just because they had dollars in their pockets. Them girls will be looking at me while the tourists are passing by. So it was just funny looking at that, because I experienced that in plenty of ports. And a lot of times I experienced it because I went to these places without the Navy. I just went on my own, right? So that was a different level because I didn't have the liberty restrictions or being with, you know, a liberty buddy per se. So yeah, that's another kind of living right there.
Yeah. So my first question is anything that I read in this book out of bounds for us to talk about?
No. That's why it's in the book.
All right. I appreciate that. What made you, I know I read it, of course I read it, you know, in the book, but what like light bulb went off when you was like, yo, I'm gonna put my life into a book?
So I've been very blessed since I got to my current command to be like the face of warrior toughness for our command. So I've been going to a lot of commands to teach about warrior toughness and talk about it. I'm talking about resiliency and mental health and all those things. And whenever I would do that, you know, people would be like, man, you got all these stories and your life has so many things that have happened. Why don't you write a book? And, you know, you hear that and it's like, whatever. It's kind of like having a cute kid and then everybody's like, hey, he should model, she should model. They all should model when they're like 3 to 5, right? Like everybody wants you to put your baby somewhere, right? So it was just more of like, all right, sounds good. But it just kept happening, right? And then, you know, it's one thing when, you know, another friend of mine is just saying that, but when you have, like, I remember I went to speak in the postgraduate school, in the academy, and you have, you know, doctorates and people like that with that kind of education and PhDs talking about, hey, you should write a book, right? That started like getting in your head a little bit. So then I'm a planner, or I try to be. And I said to myself, all right, I did some quick Googling and how many words do a biography memoir has? And it said it's anywhere from 55K as far as words to 70K. So I said to myself, if I could write 60K of a story, I'll go with the process of writing the book. So that was like step one, to just understand that. Then I set the goal of writing 500 words a day. That was my goal, right? I'm going to do that and see how far I'll go. And then lastly, I was like, so what will be the purpose, right? Like, what am I trying to get at? What is it that would make anybody want to read it? We all have struggles. We all have flaws. A lot of us been in the military, right? Like, what would make it a bit different than anybody else's stories? One is mine; it's unique to me, so that's first and foremost. So even if me and you have like the same career per se, your stories are going to be different than mine. Even if we go to the exactly same command, we're the same rate, right? Like we're all unique, so we all have our own things. But I wanted to take people all the way back to the beginning because it allows you to understand who I am today, right? Like no matter what we try, no matter how much canceling I get or who's been around in my life and all the different things, like it's still your foundation is from your childhood, right? And to this day, a bunch of us have a lot of things that is because of our childhood, good or bad. It's because of our childhood. So I needed to start there. And I wanted to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and especially throughout my career, because if I'm sitting there in front of you and the two of you, and I'm talking to you about resiliency, or if I'm talking now, like, you know, it's that time of the year for us in the selects, and we're talking about, you know, being humble and understanding what are the responsibilities that come with being a chief, then I got to tell you when I messed up too. And that's a lot of times that I just did not get caught. Like that's just simply what happened. Like it wasn't because I was a great person or I was doing the right thing. I just did not get caught. And as time went on, I understood that I was lucky, but then like I got that chance, so I need to not do those kind of things. And I still have flaws. I still make mistakes. So in a nutshell, it would just simply is showing others that no matter what the obstacles are, if you decide to look for help, if you have the right circle around you, and then you take ownership of the good, the bad, and ugly, you could be successful.
Yeah. And you know, one thing about writing a book, and especially when it's a memoir, is you're not just telling your story, but you're also incorporating other people. So I know you mentioned in the book that you talk to family members about, you know, putting this information in the book. How was that conversation though? Like, was anybody reluctant? Did you have to kind of like, you know, pull on people a little bit?
So I'm blessed. So I'll talk about like the two mothers of my children, right? Because they're there in the story, right? They have different names, but they're there. So if you know me a little bit, you know who they are, right? So there is stuff there, right, that is not going to be comfortable. Like, for example, me cheating on my ex-wife, right? That's not something that people don't want other people to know like that, right? But I did it with the understanding that I was focusing on me, on my part of it, right? Like what did I do to you know, for that to happen? The same thing as some of the things that happened with my daughter's mom, who I wasn't married to her, but we were in a relationship. The one that I've been getting a lot of issues with is about my dad.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
That's the one that's been more challenging and not accepting a lot of the things. And ultimately what I told him, I said, especially to my dad doesn't speak English, so he's getting it from the ones that do speak English and from my dad's side of the family. So of course they're only saying the quote unquote bad things that I say about the Ponciano, our family side, but they're not talking about all the things that I exposed about myself. So I wasn't just simply talking about the bad with them. I'm just talking about what was bad in my life.
Right.
So I had to tell him, like, look, there's a lot of things that you didn't see, that you're not completely guilty of, but doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'm just speaking my truth. And sometimes your truth is just simply is how I made you feel. I could be talking to you, Tisha, and I could just think that I'm talking to you in a positive way, or I'm not saying nothing offensive, but you might feel like I'm saying something offensive. So if you write about me, you're just going to tell me what you felt in that moment coming from me. What energy, what vibe, what did I say, what did I do? And that's the best way I could explain it. I mean, for example, there's the conversation about the lady that used to make me call her mom, although she was not my mother.
Yeah.
That happened. That was the thing. And she was smart enough not to do it in front of my dad. Until like one time, and the one time she did it, he didn't say anything, right? So like, it was just little things that were being done when he was not around because he worked a lot. So did she help me with schoolwork? Absolutely. Did she press my clothes? My clothes were always clean. She cooked for me. She did all these great things. But like I told him, I used the example of him being married to my mother, right? If I ask him, how was that marriage? He probably only going to remember the bad things, why it didn't work out, right? So although she did some great things, I only remember mostly the bad stuff, right? So that's what I put in the book. Not because I didn't want to put any of the good stuff. It's just simply what I recall the most of those situations. So there's still a lot of angry people, and to the point where if you look at the reviews on Amazon, there's only one review that's under even a 4, and it's from a family member. So
wow.
Okay.
I mean, the thing about it, a lot of times when we get autobiographical, when it comes to stuff, different people in your family, they gonna have problems with different things. That's just how it is. I grew up in my youth, I made music. And I remember one time I was at the radio station and I was telling my story at the radio station. Yeah, Tish, I was at the radio station. You know what I mean? I was telling and I was in high school at the time too. And I was telling my story and my mom heard it. And she's telling the people at the church, like, hey, I'm going to be at the radio station, all this stuff, right? My mom hears it. And a part of the story, and she listens to this podcast, but a part of the story was about her, right? So a part of my story had to do with her. And to me, and my youth, it had a lot to do with who I was at the time, which was true to me, you know? But after she listened to the radio thing, and I lived with my mom, it wasn't like she asked me, she was like, you didn't go through what I went through when I went through that time. So how is that? Like, how are you using that, you know, in your story? And at the time I was young and I received it as like, okay, don't, you know, if I do tell my story, then like omit that because my mom don't want to hear it. But now, as I'm an adult, I realize that whatever she did go through, whether I saw it or not, knowing her story and hearing her story did impact me. No matter what, like my mom's hey mom, you know, she about to be here. So it's even twice as weird. But hey mom, your story impacted me, whether I went through what you went through or not. Right. And that was my perspective of her story. Just like your perspective and how you received whatever happened with your family is how you received it. You know, It don't matter what they intended. It don't matter how they thought it landed. It landed however it landed on you.
Yeah.
You know, and family got to understand that when we endeavor to go. I think it happened with the pod sometime, man. You know, I think some of my subscribers come from like people I'm at the same command with, like a CEO or something that want to see what we about to say. You know what I mean? Yo, what they about to say, you know? Like, it's going to be our perspective, man, you know? Teach, how you want to do this? You want to start from the beginning,
from the beginning? Let's start from the beginning.
Because I got for real.
Let's start from the beginning. Well, actually, we already talked about family, kind of.
Yeah.
So we can jump around if we want to as things come up because it's so much. It's so much going on.
Trigger warning. Trigger warning for the listeners.
So much.
We're gonna talk a little bit about sex maybe sometime on this episode, right? That might happen.
Because he had a whole lot of
yeah. On a somber note, we might talk a little bit about sexual assault. I also want to say when this podcast come out, we are talking about resiliency, and when this podcast comes out, I believe it will be Suicide Awareness month as well. So, and we'll most likely cover some of that in, another pod. But this podcast we might talk about some elements of that too. Who knows? So, hey, I want to kick it right off. Man.
Something boiling your blood.
You achieved. Look, I got notes. It's at the top of my notes. It's at the top of my notes, right? And hey, Amaury, I know you've grown, you've matured. All of these things culminated into who you are today. But you achieved a status that most men would dream to achieve. You made love to a mother and a daughter
at the same time. Not at the same time, but I mean,
he was doing it at the same time. So I know whatever you got, I can't wait to hear it. But my question to you, because the way the book kind of laid it out, was like you were just this unassuming. Like she was like when you got in there. You was unassuming and she opened up, she had the nightgown, you could see stuff, but you were like still not knowing what was going on. When did it hit you like, yo, this lady trying to lure me in?
So it hit when the male part got excited, right? So that's not like I was now feeling as a man what happens. It was aroused. I'll use that word. So now my eyes started looking at her in a different, so like the animal instinct came in me, right? When that happens, right? So I'm looking at her a little bit different.
Yeah.
And it was the fact when she looked and saw that now I'm in this status, and she's like, yeah, that is what, like, I'm for real. This is what I want. Because because think about it. If a lady is doing something that
hey,
let's say they're being,
sorry. We got to go back for 1 second. I'm sorry. We got to go back because the listeners might not understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So Amaury was dating a girl, right? You was dating a girl. She was, how old was she?
She was a year older than me. So I was like 15. She was 16.
Oh, you were 15.
Yeah.
So this lady molested you pretty much.
Yeah, for lack of other words.
Yes, okay. Hey, Amaury, we're going to have fun this episode. Well, I mean, I guess that's not fun, but hey.
I mean, it's not funny, but like, but the thing is, like, and I use a lot of my background. Like, that was like, if I would have told my dad, for example, back then, did that happen? Yeah. That would have been a high five. Like, you go, boy. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that wouldn't be taken. Yeah. My mom would have wanted to kill her, but like, everybody else, male, would have been like, you the man. So, yeah.
But she bought you but she was sauteing this. Like, I don't know if you knew it from them, but she had bought you a jacket. It was the mom that bought you the jacket, right?
Yes. So quick story. So I'll make it quick. Met this girl. She was white, and like that. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was like an infatuation at that age. I was a huge Baywatch fan because of Pamela Anderson. So she looked like her. So like that's what made me approach her, the girl, when I was in the supermarket and met her. So anyway, I get to her house, and it was weird because we lived in Union City, but like literally you cross the street, like in a downhill, you pass the street and you see the difference between houses. Mm-hmm. People with money, people without money, or not enough money. I was in the, middle class, if that, side of things. And then there were like, lawyer and doctor, the parents. Well, they have money.
Damn.
So I get to the house and the mom, it's like right away very friendly, right? But I took it as she was just happy that her daughter, had a boyfriend, and I was good in school. Like I was not into drugs like she was. The daughter was into drugs. Which I didn't know when I started, but it was like, it wasn't nothing heavy. It was like weed, but she was into drug. I wasn't. So anyway, but like, it was always inviting me to eat dinner and why don't you come more often and things like that. And always it would be where her daughter would not be around sometimes. And, I would just go, like, I would just leave. I'm like, oh, she's not here. Then I'll just leave or whatever. One time they were going to New York to Macy's on 34th Street and just like go shopping. And we go to the mall, to the Macy's. And, back in those days, the Averex jackets were the thing. But that was like $400. Are we talking about 95, 96? Yeah. That was $400. Yeah. Right? Like even now, I might think about it twice before I buy $100. Back then, that would have been insane. And I looked at it, saw it. It was all black, and it had like everything was just black, but everything popped because they had it like coming out, like the words and the side. It was just a bomber jacket. It was just awesome, right? All leather. Yeah. And I was like, man, I tried it on, but I put it right back in the rack once I saw the price. I guess she saw me, right? So we get to the house, and here's just a bag, right? Like it's all covered up, like a suit bag. You can't see what's inside. It's just like, here.
So she surprised you?
Yes.
Ooh, man.
I grabbed it and I opened up and I was like, no, I can't have this. And it was more because of my mother. Like I knew my mom was going to be tripping. Yeah. But she insisted. So I got all happy and froggy. I'm like, I could explain it to my mom. I get to the house. She didn't see it because she was I think she was taking a shower. So I put it in my closet, like try to hide. Like my mom is not going to see my stuff in my closet. So like days later, my mom had it out and it still had the price tag and everything.
Yeah, I like what your mom said too, man. She said, this is my house.
I see everything.
Yeah, she said, this is my house every Saturday. What she say to you? Every Saturday, I look through every crack and crevice of my house.
That was my mom too. Like she would just look at drawers just because to look. Like She didn't have nothing to put in that drawer. She would just open it and go through it. I'd be like, what are you doing? So anyway, she pulled that out. It was a Saturday, time to clean. She put it out. And I remember my mother saying, you must be effing this lady for her to give you that. And I wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
But like that was her reaction to it because it was so expensive.
Yeah.
Like, why would a woman give this to a child?
Right.
Was her thing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I took it back, I explained it to her. And then like a couple of, I will say like 3, I won't call it dates, but the 3 other times that I tried to meet her, by the 3rd time, that's when then the situation happened where she told me she was not there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to leave. And she was like, no, just come in. She had a rope already on.
Oh, well, you were 15, so you probably wasn't up on the scheme she was putting.
No. I wasn't, like, that was not what was crossing my mind, right? Like, she was fine, but I was just like, yes, I didn't even think like, because even now, I might be like, well, she's too fine or she's married. Like, I will look at excuses today, but not even then. I wasn't even thinking about any of that. It was just simply like, all right.
Yeah.
Tell me to come in.
Yeah.
And she's like, she was like, she'll be here in a couple of minutes or whatever. And I was like, all right. And I just sat in the couch.
You know what? Hold on, because for our young listeners, they may not understand how life happened back then. It ain't no cell phone. So you can be like, hey, I'm at your house. I'm on my way. You just show up and hope that they're there.
Good point, T.
That's a great point. Thank you. Because, like, you're right. Like, people might be thinking, like, why didn't you call? That sounds sus. Like, how come you didn't even try to see where she was at or whatever? I didn't have a phone. I didn't even have a beeper. So it was, like, only to what she said. She had a younger kid. So there was toys in the living room. And that's when she started, like, bending.
Yeah.
And doing certain things. And the rope would raise and there was nothing under. And like I said, that's when the situation happened.
Yeah.
And she literally just took a look back, saw what was going on, and she was like, it's okay. And I was like, I'm sorry. And she was like, no, that's fine. And then she got close. And I gave her the best 2.5 seconds of her life.
Yeah. Hey, now, before we get into the end of this story, did your mom ever find out about this?
She did later on, though. I was probably like a year older.
Yeah.
So she still found out while I was young, like she could have pressed charges. Mm-hmm. But something that will tell you about my mother, bless her heart, she always had that fear that she was going to get deported. Even though she was already a citizen of the United States, by the way. Yeah. So that's why I became a citizen, because I was a minor when she became a citizen. She was here legally, green card and everything, but then she became a citizen. But she always, even to this day, my mom's been a citizen, for 30 years? And she still will pay a ticket. If she gets one, like, she's just always paranoid that anything that has to do with the law. So she wanted to do something, but she felt like hopeless of like she took it as something that someone might say something to her. Like, like you needed to control your son. Like it's your son's fault. And so it just the ignorance of, you coming from another country, you want to make the best out of being in the United States. So you don't want to get kicked out or deported, although she wouldn't. Once she committed a crime too. She's a citizen of the United States, but that's why she didn't do anything.
And you kept having relations with this woman, right? Yeah,
I had it for a little while, but then the daughter got more into more drugs. So then like we and her kind of like fell apart. And then it became kind of like why I was there. Like why I was even coming around. And I think the husband then started to like suspect things because she started buying me other stuff and giving me money. And
so you were falling off with the daughter, but still at the house. And I'm like, yo, we're friends. What are you here for still? So now the other part that was interesting about this is that the dad and the husband did find out, and he was cool about it.
Yeah.
Cool in the sense of more like okay, it happened. You need to stop. Get the hell out of my house, kind of thing. He didn't do nothing that you might expect, right? Because I don't know what happened between them, right? But if I'm looking back now that I'm a grown adult, right? Let's say I had a wife and that would happen.
Yeah.
I would think that my issue will be with the wife. She's the grown adult, like in the situation. So like, yeah, I don't want to see your face no more, child. But like, I will solve this situation. And I think that's what happened. He just literally was like, I don't want to see you in my house ever again. You know, he was the one that had most of the money or whatever. And I just was like, I can't do this to my mom for me to get in trouble, right? Like I just thought about all the repercussions that could have happened. And so I let them, but that was a good 2.5, almost 3 months run that I had going on of an older lady teaching me some things, for lack of other words.
And that's kind of where some of the lessons kind of begin, right? She was now, and I know for the husband, he knew his wife was committing a crime too. Like, so it's like, she's criminal, she's sick, whatever, right? That is kind of what it is. But that kind of gives you a foundation on things that you wouldn't have learned as a 15-year-old, right? Now I'm gonna jump somewhere completely different, and I'm gonna kind of jump around as I was taking notes throughout the book. Have you been the same complexion that you are for the majority of your life?
Maybe a little darker, because in DR I was outside in the sun a lot. So
okay, so you were never lighter. You never lighter.
No, this is as light as I ever been.
All right, and can you dig into? You spoke on the fear of African Americans. I think I'm quoting from the book, "Fear of African Americans." Can you speak to that a little bit more? Because one thing I do know is that you're not the only person that, dealt with that as far as being your complexion and from a place like the DR or something like that. And also the reason why you said you had it is very interesting. I think some of that stuff still kind of goes on a day. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, and that's why I touch on it, right? Because I want to, not to like throw something that's bad like that, but just to acknowledge it, right? Like it's part of like to grow is you have to acknowledge even dumb stuff like that. It's kind of what we're dealing now today, where people want to be like, there's no racism, there's no. Yes, there is. Right? Like we just have to like talk about it and hopefully we can move on. But anyway, for me, I can tell you, even in Dominican Republic, right? There was family members that will say stuff like, I have like our cousin, especially on my mother's side of the family, I have cousins that they look white, green eyes. You won't even think that they're Dominicans, right? So they will be out playing and you will hear my aunt say stuff like this. Don't stay in the sun too long. You don't want to get as dark as Amaury. Right? Think about that. And that you hearing that, or, if you drink too much coffee, you're going to get dark or darker. So that's why you shouldn't drink coffee. Like literally, this is the kind of conversations that are happening in Dominican Republic, right? So that's the background that I come from. So then I get to the US. My neighborhood in New Jersey was very Latino. So I felt at home, right? Like I was able to talk to people or whatever. And the only time that I saw African Americans was in the news. And what do we see in the news, unfortunately?
Bad news.
95% of the negative, no matter what race, but definitely in that area, New York, New Jersey, that New York City, because that's the kind of the TV that we get in, is someone robbing, a Black African American doing drugs or Dominican selling drugs. Like it was always in a negative way. So when my mother's husband at the time will take me, because he will buy things wholesale and then sell it to the bodegas. And I will get that interaction. And I was terrified. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like terrified of African Americans, right? Like never did anything to me. Like nobody ever touched me. I didn't even have to fight with anybody. Like I was just simply going by what I saw on TV and the fear that my own mother installed in me because she had her own fears because she only dealt with it in the news, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So my first interaction with boot camp, man. And my first time of talking and literally being like, man, this dude is just like me. Like, you know, like the things that we're talking about, like, don't sit on that good couch in grandma house. It's the same fucking thing.
It's the same, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it took that though. It took the military, man, to like, and that openness that has to happen because we have to communicate, starting with boot camp, where it just me and you my brother, you my sister, or, you know, we're working together. Forget all the other BS. We just got to get this done. And it took that. If I would have stayed in New Jersey, maybe I wouldn't have been as paranoid, right? Because I would have had to try, you know, move around in New York and probably get to meet more people as I get older and go to schools and things like that. But yeah, it was an uncomfortable moment. But definitely I'm glad that I got to experience what it truly is to just simply talk to people, because same thing with white folks. Like, I didn't speak with many. I just didn't have that fear, but I never spoke with many until I got to boot camp. And I was, you know, I had people from Montana in my damn division that I didn't even know that was a state back then. And I was like, Montana, where the hell is that, right? So...
And you right, man. Like, our grandmas, they teaching us the same lessons. This dude from Montana, grandma got him, giving them candy at church the same way my grandma was giving me candy. You know what I mean? Like, she got the candy in the pocketbook. And one of the things you talked about was the Navy and the impact that it has on that, right? I don't think it's anything like the military when it comes to just putting a bunch of us together. And because out in the real world, you could live in a bubble that you create. Like, you can exist in that bubble, even the way the algorithms go now. You could live in that bubble even online. You know what I mean? That's why I never understood, like, when people, like, for instance, like some of these TV shows where people be like, hey, we're the black character. You know, it's like, hey, they might not. It's groups of 6 friends that might not be a black person there. It's groups of 6 friends that might not be somebody that's LGBTQ there, right? Every group of people in this world is not as diverse as I think we want them to be on TV, right?
Right.
And that's kind of unrelated. But in the Navy, like I said, like, you just go around all of these people and you get instilled with, like, I got a guy from Nepal that taught me some invaluable lessons. I learned some invaluable lessons from a guy from Africa in boot camp. I learned some invaluable lessons from a guy from China at my first command. And then people from all over the world and all over the country. And I probably did the same thing for them, being a young black kid from Philly, who some of them didn't expect to, like, know this or know that or be able to do this or do that. I mean, that's right. I love it, Tish. You know, that's like one of the things I love most about the military.
Yeah, same here. And it's funny when you go, like, out in town, you can tell the pack of military, because it's just like the buddies that are together. It's all different types of people, and I can always spot them. Either they're going to have on a backpack or it's just going to be a mixture of people, and you're like, oh yeah, they're Navy.
all different styles, man.
Right. Getting along, drunk together.
Hey, so a part of the book, I felt like, for a little bit of the book in the beginning, right? It was a part I felt funny. And as I really put it in perspective, it wasn't funny no more. When I thought about it, like, I was like, damn, I'm almost 40 and I'm looking at this, but he was young. And I'm gonna tell you, it was the language barrier part, right? It was about you being mad at your brother because he was here longer, so he spoke better. I was like, and you brought it up, like, in the span of, like, a couple pages, it came up like 6 times. Like, nah, I was mad at this dude because he can speak better.
I noticed that too.
It made my life miserable because, like, he would talk smack to the point that he would say that I was illegal immigrant that I came here. That would be like the joke. And then he will talk to me in English to, like, so I will piss me off because I didn't understand what he was saying. But I thank him to this day because it drive me to learn it quicker. Like, like I still have my accent and, you know, I still have issues writing certain things even after 30 years being here. But I was one of the, you know, quickest one. Like, I got here in 8th grade, and by already sophomore year, a year and a half, I was already in almost all English classes. Like, we had ESL, English as second language, in some of the classes. But like the vast majority, I wasn't, and that was mainly because of my brother. And then I wanted to talk to girls, but definitely my brother.
I kind of had that second. I was like, but it's nothing like more motivating than a sibling rivalry anyway. Like that sibling rivalry.
It was like, it urged me because it was funny because my mother did not speak English as well.
Yeah.
But my mother's husband, he did. And whenever he didn't want either my mom or I to like understand something, he will switch to English and just talk to him. And it will piss me and my mom off, but he will just continue to do it and definitely make fun of me. And then I remember I used the F word, not F-C-K, but I used the for like gay. I used that word with him, not even knowing what it meant, because I heard it in school. And I remember my mom husband having to like talk to me, because I remember asking someone like, if you want to say something hurtful in English to your brother, what would you say? And they used the F word, and I was like, how do you say that again? You have to tell me like 8 times. And then I just said it one time, and that didn't go well in the house. But yeah, it was a driving force because it had me highly upset almost every week on something that he would do or say, and I didn't understand what he was doing.
When your mother moved back to DR, did your brother move back too?
Yes, when she moved back for a short period of time after when I went and joined the Navy, he moved back as well.
So how's your relationship with your brother throughout your Navy career, like trying to balance? I know you talked a lot about trying to balance, like going home and seeing your mom. Like, how was that with your brother when you went back?
So we never been close. And
okay.
I love him. You know, he means a lot to me, and I know he loves me too. But I think that there is some level of me being the first child and the relationship that I have with my mother, right? We have a very close relationship. So they have their own problems, but what happens a lot is that my brother blames their lack of understanding into that she cares more about me. And then there's sometimes a level of resentment that happens, and it comes out from time to time, right? But it, we talk. We don't talk as often as we should, right? Like I'm guilty of like I have my bubble, right? So it's only like the way that our relationship is my fault. Like I don't make the effort as much as I should to talk to him, right? Yeah. And it's the same way with my brother and my dad's side, right? So it's just a me issue, right? Like I'm just the one. But I text my mother every day. I text my dad every day. I text my kids. So it's not that I'm like that with everybody. So you could kind of say it's intentional. Unfortunately, like I don't bring the time that I need to maybe flourish that relationship, right? But yeah, it was not something that like I will try to go home because I wanted to see, and it's going to sound horrible, but it's just a reality. I want to see my brother. I just want to see my mom, and my brother happened to be there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, people don't know the amount of emotional effort that it takes into any relationship you have. Like every single relationship takes effort. Like you can't have everything. You know what I mean? And I'm the same way like you, man. Like I create a life and a space for myself. And I'm like, it's some people that's just not in that space. You know, they just not there. You know what I mean? I had when me and Angeline got married, I had a family member reach out, a cousin of mine who, when we were younger, we were closer, but that's because we had to be closer because we were kids. And, you know, she reached out. She was like, hey, how come you ain't invite me to, you know, such and such and such and such? I'm like, yo, scroll through your phone, you know, and tell me the last time you hit me up. You know, the first time you hitting me up is asking me how come I ain't invite you somewhere. We ain't talking about 12 years. We're not connected. Like, you don't have to go to this place. Like, why you gotta be at the wedding? Like, why? You know? And I do that, man. It's people, somebody I know that I knew just went through something like traumatic. And as much as I like wanted to like be like, hey, look, you know, such and such people in my prayers and all of that, it's already just who I am as a person. I talk about it on a podcast a lot. It's already hard for me to formulate that stuff now, right? That's why I'm happy for ChatGPT, because hey, ChatGPT, how do you tell this person that you, right? But so it's already hard, right? And look, I ain't even trying to be funny, but it's already hard for me to do that emotionally. That's just not who I am as a person. So now for this person that I ain't speak to in the last 12 years, for me to overextend my emotions and say, hey, sorry for this, these people in my prayers, knowing that they not in my prayer. I'm just not about to do this, again. And honestly, we can't spread ourselves too much thin when it comes, like, you got your kids, bro. Like, I see how much love you have to give to them. You can't give everybody that same love and that same attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and that's something that I think, because we deal with guilt a lot, right? Oh man, I ain't talked to my long lost cousins. The only time I see y'all is at family reunion. That's gonna be the only time I see you. We don't only see each other at family. I don't have enough emotional equity for every single person, in my family. And I hope the people, I'm actually talking to the people in my family right now. I hope y'all know that when we see each other, for real, when we see each other's love, we have a good time. We toss the football back and forth. That's the extent of it.
Right.
And that might sound cold, but I have my daughter now, and I had to, that's a whole, I know, Amaury, that's a whole nother part of love, that I gotta extend out of myself. So.
And it's really hard when you're in the military too, because you're traveling. Yeah. And so it's not like they're down the street. So it's kind of hard to keep those relationships together. And then also your upbringing, like, y'all were living in two different households for a good period of time, and you went through a lot when you were in that household. Yeah. So it's like the struggle ain't really, you like, we not the same. Hashtag not like us.
and what's crazy is I have a tighter connection with, like, my best friend who I met in Jersey when I got to New Jersey, because we have so many things in common. Like, he came to the U.S. also. Like, he was 13, I was 14. We started being friends, oddly enough, like, because we were about to fight in high school, and then we became like best friends. And he came into the Navy. I came into the Navy. He didn't stay as long as me. He only did like 6 years, but we stay in contact. And then the best part about that relationship is I can call him today, and it will be, although we haven't talked maybe like a month and a half, and it will be like we just talked yesterday.
Yep. You ain't gotta.
And no, hey, where you been and how come?
Yep.
Right.
And that's the vibe I need. Like, you just take me if I'm doing something wrong, by all means, correct me, when in the sense of, like, if I'm doing something that is not supposed to be, but, like, just simply because I didn't devote the time, like, you get me, I get you. And that's what the people that I need in my circle. Because as you say, then I don't have all that energy to be given to everybody, because I give a lot already to work. And then to the people really in my circle, and everybody else is going to get some, but it's just not going to get the same level that my daughter or my son is going to get. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, right. I think your close siblings kind of, and not even your brother, but just close siblings, period. I think they anchor in, like, who we were when we spent the most time together. So, like, my brother still look at me like that 12-year-old, kid who used a plastic bag to scoop the poop out the toilet when the toilet wasn't working. Like, that was me, guys. We didn't tell you the toilet can't flush. Oh, I didn't poop. I'm reaching in the toilet and getting the poop out. But they still, like, it's like, hey, I'm not that guy anymore. Like, I wouldn't do that at 37.
Right.
Like, hey. So you had an abusive, it's funny, like, it's no type of segue, right? You had an abusive stepdad at some point. Now, he wasn't abusive to you, right?
Yes. He was never abusive to me, right? Like, he tried to do it one time, right? Like, he was drunk, and I didn't like how he was talking to my mother, right? He was drunk as hell and talking about open your mouth so I could pee to my mom, right?
Yeah,
and,
that was crazy.
Yes. And I just grabbed the bat, and I was ready to go to town in his head, thankfully for my own life and my, and me not being in prison. My mother stopped me, but I lost all respect after that. And then I continue to see how disrespectful he was to my mother in many different ways, right? Like, there was never physical abuse. I didn't see that, but I did see verbal abuse to my mother, and then to my younger brother, because he lived with him for the longest period of time. And even after the cold happened and I went to Dominican Republic, here's the dude that while all that is happening, and I'm literally not even a month after I got the ship got bombed, he's asking me how come I'm not giving them money because I'm staying in my mom's house, right? And let's just say that did not go well with my mother. And then me, at that moment, I was so numb because of everything that has happened with the cold that I was just like, here's some money, man. Like, I don't care. I'm just happy to be here with my mother and my family, bro. Like,
Right.
But that was just the kind of little things, when people are abusive like that, they find every way to try to put people down, to try to give, bad thoughts. So yeah, he was not a good character, especially to my mother.
Yeah. Now, I did have a question about the money story, but before the money story, how is it being a young man? And I think we all look at our moms like the strongest people we know. A lot of times, in a lot of scenarios, we look at our moms like I looked at my mom like that coming up, right? Now, what's going through your head as a young adult, and knowing that it's somebody kind of taking advantage of her emotions and her feelings and like downplaying that person that you believe to be the strongest person that you know. I think that's a hell of a hit in the head. Like
it was really tough because for everything else, she was just so strong, right? Like I just did not understand it. My mom sacrificed so much. She worked in a factory for years, standing up for 8 hours. I'm talking about the only time she sat down was lunch breaks, right? And whatever little breaks she might have. And, she was abused at a very young age. Like she had all these issues, like, my brother's dad, brought her to the U.S., thankfully, because that's why I'm here. But then gave her some money and left her where she didn't know anybody in America. Like just some shit out of the movie, to be honest. Like just, here's $200, I'll be right back. And disappear, right? So she went through all the struggles, and then I see her with this guy. And at that age, I remember saying things like, why are you still with him? Like, why are you doing this? And she would just like use what a lot of adults do, which is like, that's adult business. Don't worry about it, right? But it affected me, and then especially my brother as we gotten older. Like I remember we had a huge argument. I was probably like 27, 28, me and my mom. And I brought it up again. Like now it's like 10, 12 years later. Like, why did you do that to us? But especially my brother, because he was the one that was getting all this abuse, verbal abuse and psychological from this guy. And she just started crying. And she was like, I didn't think I could make it financially and give you the two of you the life that I wanted to give you without him.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to her, which is hindsight is 2020, like I could have eaten rice and beans every single day if that meant that we didn't have to have that.
Right.
If that meant that my brother didn't have to go through that. But, when you're an adult, we all have gone through things that we think is better for our family, for ourselves. And we kind of like just get single-minded. And her eyes was simply like, I brought my kids to the U.S. to have a better life. I'm giving them a better life. But the only way that I could afford that is with two incomes in the house.
Yeah.
So she was willing to sacrifice all these different things. And then you have to come into account, like, mental health is not a thing, or it's not like it is now. And the all the resources they're there. And then just culture, like, like even today with all the resources, I don't even think my mom would have gone to see anybody, even if I paid for her to go see a psychiatrist, a psychologist. Right. So when you have all those things together, you could, like now that I'm older, I'm able to understand it and forgive her a lot more. I have forgiven her on what my brother especially went through because of the abuse that gentleman put her and him through.
What taught you the most about American culture when you were young? So basically, I think I want to say you brought up music. I want to say, I don't remember though, but I had a friend, and all I did was give him like Seth Rogen movies. My boy from Nepal. I was like, "Hey, just watch Knocked Up, watch 40-Year-Old Virgin, watch this." Yeah, you know how it is to be American, man. And he was good after that. He couldn't stop saying the word "fuck." Like he couldn't. Like he just kept saying it. I was like, man, I shouldn't have let you watch Superbad, right? But outside of that, he was good. But was it music for you that like really ingrained you in American culture?
So here's what how strong of a whole media, which we want to say is now social media, but just at the time media, because it was just TV, and then the fear that your own surroundings can put on you, right? I'll preface this what I'm about to say because it's important. My two favorite shows, or actually three, Martin, First Prince, Family Matters. What are the characters there? African American.
Yep.
Yet, I still had that fear. Love those shows. Watch every episode. I still love Martin to this day. I'm glad it's an HBO now because I just watch it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Some of my favorite shows, yet because of that, like that fear and all this other stuff that we talked about earlier, like I could put the difference. And I think that's happening today where people be like, but these people are cool, but the rest are not.
Right.
And that's how I will justify it in my head. Like, you know, this is just the exception instead of like, this is reality. This is life. That's, you know, so, but then another thing that will come to music, I was a huge Bad Boy fan. I know P. Diddy now, you know, all the stuff that he's
you're in trouble.
Biggie, 112, you know, Mace. I'm talking about arguing about East Coast and West Coast because some kids in my school, although we were in Jersey, they talk about West Coast and because they love Tupac. So it will be like an argument about that. So that will be like the connection that I started having with America, right? And like I enjoy the music so much and I enjoy, you know, the opportunities that I started seeing because even in my neighborhood, although it was mostly Latinos, there were all these businesses that it was owned by Latinos that if they were in Nicaragua, or Honduras, or El Salvador, or Panama, wherever they came from, they would have been able to do that. And I was seeing that. And to me, that was the dream. Like there was still middle class. Like there wasn't like they were rich, but they owned a business. They were working for the family and stuff. And I just wanted a piece of that one day, right? And I just understood that I wouldn't have been able to do that in Dominican Republic. So that's what I started this is, you know, this is what I want to do. Or the fact that I could go to a movie theater that was 3 blocks away from my house. I couldn't do that in Dominican Republic. Just little things like that like I look back now and I'm just like, I've been very blessed, man, because I know where I came from.
Yeah. You brought up when you first got back from Nicole and your stepdad asking you for money. And the question I wrote down when I heard that was, did they need the money? I don't know why that was a question, but it was a question of mine.
I think it's very valid because I will tell you, definitely not. Like, and I think that's why my mom got upset, right? Because it was, you know, it's different. Like now, like I provide my mom some money, right? She's already retired, right? And like even before she retired, I used to send her money, not a lot, but I've been sending her money since I've been in the Navy. So, but like it was, they did a lot of things and they had a bodega for a while and then they were doing that wholesale retail business. So they saved a lot of money. They built a house in Dominican Republic, like from the ground up, how they wanted it. They saved money. They had money because especially at that moment, it was literally like only less than a year that they moved back to the Dominican Republic. So there was still all this money. So it was more of the principle of like, you're here, you've grown now, and you in the military. So I know you get a check. So you got to provide, even though you're only here for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's a lot. A lot of families have to deal with that when they go back. And in all different cultures, they have to deal with that. So I mean, that's real.
It happened to me even as I got older and I kept going back to the Dominican Republic. I remember one time I brought like a whole suitcase of like, it's tradition. Dominicans go back and you bring clothes and gifts for everybody or whatever. I'm not balling like that. So like a lot of my clothes were like Old Navy shirts and, you know, Navy pants. And I straight up had one of my cousins like, Old Navy. And DR, by the way, where they're having hand-me-downs. And this dude was like, nah, I'm good. Because I had a Movado at the time because I saved my little boot camp money to buy me a Movado. And he was like, you wearing a Movado? How come I'm getting Old Navy? You see what I'm saying? So like, it just continued to happen through the years to the point that I don't bring nobody nothing now. Fuck that shit.
So I want to move. You got any more questions about like young growing up family stuff, Tish?
No, I think I can get to it later because it's kind of like the young stuff ties into the adult family stuff, and yeah.
So I want to move to A school because you had a girl in A school, and the age old story, Tish, of hey, we gonna make it work when it's over.
Listen, I remember being in the car, right, driving to work, listening to it, and this had been like maybe a few relationships in. For in the book, a few I was like, one thing Amaury he gonna try to make that thing work. He gonna try to make every relationship work. He go in it for the win. I do like that. I can appreciate that.
Even if I mess it up later, I'm gonna try at first to like make it work. Yeah.
I think I even said, because I was talking to somebody when I got out of A school, and I think I even said, hey, I'm going to come visit you. Man, my ass was never going back to Great Lakes. I never wanted to go back to Great, And at the time, I'm like, man, she's pretty. And then she, as soon as you leave, she a hot commodity out there. Like, dudes want to, like, I'm away now. Like, I was smothering, her at the time. I'm gone now. Like, everybody they've been waiting. I've been waiting for him to leave because he took up all her time.
So for us, it was like we graduated A school.
Yeah.
Came to Jersey, met my mother. My mother, by the way, loved her, right? Like, although she didn't speak any Spanish, so I had to be like translating it all the time. But she smiled at everything my mom said and loved her food, so that was enough, right? But then she got orders to Italy, I got orders to Norfolk.
Yeah, it's over.
And the phone calls started going less and less. And then I remember I called her and I could hear a party in the background.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm at a house party or whatever. And the anger that I felt inside of me, because I was just thinking like all the, everything else that's going to happen later. Like I just thought about what's going to happen later. I remember calling her again like 3 days later, or she called me, one of us. And I was like, yeah, before I hate you, because you cheated on me or I cheat on you, we need to end this because it's just not going how we both thought it was going to be. I don't know what we were both thinking. Like, we don't got money to be flying to Italy and never coming back. Like, you know what I mean? But to this day, we're still in contact. She's an awesome person. I think some of that was is that we never, and it didn't end it with that hurt. So if anything happened, before we call it, I will never know because I don't ask those questions and I don't want to because I see her in a different light. Not that it matters now, but yeah, it was one of those that like I don't know what I was thinking and then I remember being on the ship because I was still with her and the old head first classes be like, she cheated on you, bro. Like what?
Tearing up your dreams.
Yeah, I had to tell somebody that before. I had to be the one that told somebody. It's bad, Amaury, because I went against guy code when I did it because it was a woman that I had to tell her that her dude. I'm like, yo, I'm tired of this. Like every day it was something with her. She crying. It was this. I'm like, all right. And listen, for the fellas out there, I went through this for about 4 or 5 months with her. A deployment. So by the 5th month, I was like, yo, he cheating on you, yo. I can't keep. It's breaking. It was no deployment, so maybe I get excused. But I'm like, yo, I can't keep not telling you this. He's cheating on you, and I'm tired of you talking to me about it.
As a man, from my perspective, he cheated.
He cheated. It is what it is. You know what I mean? That's just a funny situation getting out of A school when y'all going y'all separate ways. It'd be crazy if you call and it's like a dude in the background like, yo, tell him you gonna call him tomorrow. Like,
there was conversation. I don't think it was the dude again. Like I don't.
Yeah, it's just a
like,
party.
The fact of like the party, the way she was barely even listening to what I was saying, like more into what was happening. It was all the wrong vibes. And like I said, I felt so angry, so hurt. And I think it was very mature if you really think about it, the two of us, because we came to the same understanding to say, hey, before we hurt each other, like, let's just call it what it is. And, both move on and,
Yeah. I think only the strongest young people should put themselves through that. That's not something that I would wish on young people to go through, is that long of that long distance of a relationship. It's hard. It's hard to do it in your 30s, your late 30s, your 40s. It's hard to do it at any time in your life. But to be in your 20s, the prime of all of this, me personally, I wouldn't wish that on a young person. Whenever somebody tell me that they in a long distance relationship, I'd be like, in my head, I'm like, man, I hope the best for this person.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So back to the ship. You are a junior seller, right? So this is where I started to get envious of the times, right? Just to, like, this is where we at in the book, right? So we at the part in the book where I'm getting envious of the times, right? Because I'm hearing like some Liberty expiration times get tossed around that I never heard in my life. You know what I mean?
I was like, oh, dang.
Saying? So he's saying he was getting out of Liberty at 2:00. This was on the Cole. You get out of Liberty at 2:00. And I think this was in the States though, for like a fleet week or something like that.
No. For Miami was when we went to Miami, it was like up to like 1, I think I want to say. Then the first port we hit was Barcelona.
Yeah.
Barcelona was like 2 a.m. And then
that's crazy.
By the time we went to the next one, the CEO was like, just show up for turnover. And, he wanted us back, but by 6 a.m.
Damn. Yep.
Yeah. Crazy. But again, there's a lot of things, like we were not at war back then. Like this is before 9/11. So we were literally just steaming to, be in the waters, but like with no threat. 2, there was no social media. There's nothing to, if a sailor, something happens out of town, that stays within the ship. Yeah. We were independent steaming. So there was no carrier, no strike group, that we had to report to. It was just simply the CO directly to, the fleet commander. So there was a lot of leeway. And I will honestly say, credit to the Cole crew, like, there was this conversation of like, don't fuck it up for someone else. Like, so if you were like drunk as hell, I will make sure you were going to get back to the ship at the time that it was required and throw you in that rack. And then I'll head out back. Like, you know what I mean? Like we had each other's back because it was that level of like, they trust in us to stay out here and do these things. So let's not mess it up. But yeah, man, it was lovely. That's all I can say.
And now y'all messed it up one time, right? But right, and it's a reason why I like this story was a special one for me in the book, because it had a lot to do with how much power and discernment. I'll say discernment first, and I'll say discernment, and I'll say power. First classes had. At this time, right? I personally, right, a shout out to the first classes. I wish it wasn't like this, but I personally don't think it's the same as it was back in these days.
Yeah.
Because now,
I noticed that too. I was like, dang, a first class. Like, dang, what was it? What was his name?
Bloodsall, right?
Bloodsall, yeah. I was like, dang.
Yeah, and I want to get into him after this scenario, right? But can you give me the scenario where y'all were late for Liberty? I think y'all were late back for Liberty in the morning, but Bloodsall did something. What was that?
Yeah, so, we were supposed to report, like be physically on board the ship. We were in Malta. And we met some wonderful ladies. And we went back to their place and did our thing. And next thing you know, it is 6 o'clock in the morning where we supposed to already be on board. And one thing that he did say was, no matter what happens, you better call us then. Like, call me, let me know. And back then, there was still no cell phone. So, like, that just also goes to show, like, the level of, like, responsibility, because he will be inside a radio, because also I was in a DDG, so there was only, like, 4 phone lines. So there wasn't, like as many as we have nowadays, where it's, like, 8 or 9 or more in the DDG. It was only, like, 4. and one was radio. And I call him and he said, you guys are okay? I was like, yeah, we're good. We just overslept. I told him the story. It's so-and-so that's supposed to be with you there. I was like, yeah. And then he was like, all right, I'll muster you guys that you were here. We'll handle it when you get back. And that was it.
That's crazy.
And when we got back, it wasn't even like, you did this and we're going to send you to mass. It was like, you guys know better. But the fact that we were still responsible, because I did call, like I was going to be late. Like I was like 5:45. So it was like, I was not going to make it on time. But I did call. I did do what he told me to do, if for whatever reason I couldn't make it to the ship. And then the fact that, and I think this here is where I give him even more credit, is the fact of like, he took to account the other times and how well we were as sailors, how we behaved before. It was a one-off. And he just took it as that. It was like, okay, don't do that again. Glad that you guys are good. I'll see you when you get to the boat. We'll talk more. Yeah. And my chief didn't say anything. I didn't hear anything from, my department head. I didn't go to mass. I didn't go to DRB. None of that. I had a conversation. I had to do some extra cleaning and then do some extra things within radio, but nothing that would have detrimented my career or to make me feel like making a mistake or not being responsible that one time where I didn't hurt anybody and it was nothing like to that extent that it was the end of the world. And we don't lead that way anymore. That just as a whole.
Why you don't, now let's break the fourth wall for 1 second. Why you don't think we lead like that no more?
So there's so many things that go with that. So I think the first one is what I talked about. Like, for better or worse, we love social media, but like, I'm so quick to get a video of you messing up for the world to see. Like, I'm so, that's just a culture that we have, all of us, right? We want to let people know all our moves, including what we're doing, maybe things that we're not supposed to do, that I could easily be like, Damo, like, don't do that. Let's keep it between us. Not to hide from the things, but just be like, let's have a conversation and instead of like show the world that you messing up. Like, we're so quick to like take that picture because my belly is popping out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, instead of having a conversation that my button is not right, I'd rather take a picture. So that's one. Two, there's not a level of trust that I don't know where it went, but we don't inherently trust people first. Like, we go with you are going to mess up, so I got to give you all these precautions instead of prove me wrong. I'm going to give you leeway. I'm going to trust you. And then I'll treat you how you need to be treated if you do something, right? And I think some of that is because of the culture that we have, in the sense of like, for accountability is only done when it's done with punishment, with you know what I mean? Like there is no accountability. We're just simply, let's have a conversation. And I say that I say this to myself all the time. We don't have that peer-to-peer pressure, in a good way, pressure. What I mean is, like, when I was a second class and you were a second class, if you're not doing your maintenance, I don't need chief to tell you that you're not doing your maintenance. I'm coming to you myself as a second class. Like, hey, man, I don't want chief be like counseling like telling us that we're going to stay late or not doing because you're not doing your maintenance, bro. Like, what you need? Let's get this done, right? Like there's just not a lot of that. It's a lot of, we in it for ourselves in a lot of places, right? And because of that, I'd rather you get chewed out. I'd rather, you get sent to mass or whatever, because there's no level of like that. Like I said, that peer-to-peer good pressure that we used to have. I don't feel like it's there to the extent that it was before. And then just simply like we rather, talk to people after the fact, after things happen, instead of having conversations from the get-go and building trust and building that way that I trust you and I'm going to allow you to be an adult. And then if you prove me wrong, then I got to do what I got to do, but not simply go with like, let me restrict you now from the get-go. And then because of that, as any human being, you tell me I cannot do something, I'm more willing to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
I think some of our eval, and I ain't going to dig deep into it. I'm going to move on, but I think some of our eval culture, some of that promotion culture and command cultures like got a lot to do with how people want to be seen. Because I don't think like nobody want to be the person that take the ass chewing. Because I think back in those days, and not from your story specifically, but from other stories I heard from people, it's people like, I know my senior chief got his ass chewed. I know my chief got his ass chewed, but he took care of us for that. We ain't feel this here. We ain't feel that here. But somebody went somewhere. I've walked in rooms to go get my ass chewed. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Hey, I'm coming in here so you can chew my ass. Like, do it. You know what I mean? Do it. Chew my ass. You know, because somebody got to take this ass chewing, and nobody wants to hold like. And that's not it's exceptions, right, to these rules. But a lot of times, but you get, it's like nobody want to hold this. Don't nobody want to go see the old man. Nobody want to. Well, you go tell him. If he's best, you go. I've seen that before. Well, you know, hey, like, what I don't want to dig into nobody, like, you know, but like even with like department heads or something. Well, you come up there with me. You know, you tell them with me. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so nobody want to be that, you know. So then we get into where like the first classes don't have what IT1 Bloodsaw had, because they can't have it. Because if they try to have it, it's going to be a chief. Like, how come you ain't fucking tell me about it? You know,
and that's why I was going to say that too. We have to blame. I love the Chiefs mess. I've been in the Chiefs mess since 2011. We also have taken a lot of that from the first class.
Yeah.
Ourselves, right? Like we have taken, like, as you said, like IT1 Bloodsaw will literally tell my chief, get out of radio. I got it. Like, get out. This is my shack. I got him. I'll take care of it. I said it, but it was with the intention of like, I will take care of them, not because she was like bad or whatever. It just, like, he owned it, but he was allowed to own it. And I don't know if we're doing that, because there's first classes that want to do that. But because, as you said, I'll talk about it a little bit, because we won that eval as a chief, and I want to, you know, be the one that is in the front of like whatever troubleshooting and whatever, even though I'm just sitting there and while my guys are doing it. Then we don't empower them to lead as first classes.
And then some of that, hey bro, some of that be the expectations of the people that's looking at us as chiefs, you know? So it's like, so at some point you gotta, again, be able to take the ass chewing, but in a different, like, at some point you gotta really not give a damn what people perceive of you to be. You know what I mean? You can't care, right? And that's something that we should all learn. I think at some point in time, maybe during the season, like, hey, you got to be able to accept that, like, people going to think something of you, right? Even what we talked about it before, when it's like saying no about things. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it, you know?
Right.
But we get so caught up in wanting to be this person that could provide for every single, back to the family stuff, right? That could provide for every single person. We don't have enough in us to do that shit. Right. So I think, you know, and we could talk about stuff like that for weeks and weeks and episodes and episodes, because it only, like, the layers peel back so far, right? Because we could take this all the way up to the CO, right? We could take these expectations all the way up to the CO, but then we got to take it up to the strike group. You know, like these expectations. I've been places with COs that would have done something one way, but they couldn't. Because the admiral or somebody else had something else in mind. So it's just a crazy...
It's the culture. It's an overall culture that we have created of the lack of trust, and just rank is the only thing that allows you to get trust. Like, your efficiency as a first class doesn't matter, because as long as it's like a chief on top of it, or if it's a senior chief or a master chief, whatever, that's what they're looking at.
Yeah. And I don't like that. Like with some of the collaterals. At all. The collaterals that we know first classes are like doing everything for. Like, I'm going to give a small example. And this, I ain't going to be specific, but like the ESWAS program, right? It's some command out there that got an ESWAS program, that got a chief running a program. But that chief got a fucking assistant. That assistant is a first class. And you know what that first class is doing? every
Everything.
single thing except talking to the CMC and the CEO or whatever about Eastwise. But everything else, that first class is fucking doing it, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we just give it to the first class? Why can't we just give it to first?
Right.
Hey, so speaking on first classes, Bloodsaw, right? Bloodsaw was seemed like a strong LPO, right?
Yes. I go as far as to saying that the good things that Master Chief Ponciano has as a leader, I'll go saying that about 80% of that, the good side of the leadership that I have, is because of IT1 Plus.
What happened to him?
So he stayed and put on chief. I think he went all the way to senior chief, and then he went LDO and retired as a lieutenant commander. He's in Bahrain now.
Oh, he's still active. Okay.
No, he's not active anymore. He retired, but he's in Bahrain.
Oh, he retired in Bahrain. Okay.
In Bahrain.
Yeah. Did you see him during the Cole incident?
So he, with the bombing, he broke his jaw. So one of those that was like taken off the ship immediately.
Okay.
The crazy part is that guy was giving instructions as he was with a broke jaw, as they were taking him off the ship. To a couple of us.
Yeah.
You know, like, look at here, go do this. And, whoa, you need to go over. Like, he barely could even talk. And he was still giving instructions to a couple of us. Because I was one of those that was very scared, and I was looking at my LPO for like answers, like what to do, what do I need to go next? And his only message was like, do what you're told. They took him off the ship.
I'm telling you, I had anxiety waiting to hear where he was as you were going through like the aftermath and, you know, everything. I was like, where is he? Where is Bloodsaw?
Yeah, we gonna figure this out.
Right.
I'll figure it out.
I was relieved when you said, you know, that, you know, you ran into him and the jaw and everything. I was like, thank God. Like, I felt like I was like watching a movie. So yeah, that was a great illustration.
Bloodsaw was extremely influential on who I am as a man, who I am as a chief, and how I try to take care of people, and like what I like to call what my legacy is going to be, right? When people remember me, what it will be like. Because he's not perfect, right? No human is perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, but when I think of him, it just, all the challenges that he put on me, but in the best way, man. It was, you know what? Like, there's people that will challenge you just because they want to see if you don't know an instruction so they can laugh at you or make you feel small. Bloodsaw will challenge all of us, right? Like, he just did not pick on me. He picked on me a little bit more because he said that he saw something in me, and he told me that at a very young stage. So it wasn't like once I made chief that he was like, "Yeah, I saw something in you." He was telling me that as a seaman. Because I will give him a PQS and this dude will give me 3 more to get qualified. And I'll be like, Blood, can I just chill for like a week? Like, I got the PQS done early. Can I just like chill? And he'll be like, nah, you gotta we gotta learn some more. I got you get you qualified. But it was just that. And then like little things that he will do, like I will ask him questions and this dude will know publications like, yeah, it's in pub so-and-so, chapter 3, read it. And what I used to love, and I still try to do that to this day, is he will say, read it, and then I want you to come back and we're going to talk about it. Not like some people will like, read it, and then you're going to tell me. No, he will be like, and we're going to talk about it to ensure that I understood what I was doing. And man, I could take this whole episode to tell you about Bloodsaw. Yeah. Like, it just how much impact he made in my life. And like, I remember, one last thing I'll say about him, just to tell you like the level of like caring about his sailor. I live on the ship like sailors do, right? Like my job is, once I was done from work, to the point that he will like try to let me go early some Fridays and things like, and I'll be like, what? So I could be in the ship? Like let someone else leave and doesn't live on the ship, because I'm going to stay and I'm just going to go to the berthing on the ship, because I didn't even have a car at the time or anything. I was going to stay on the ship for Thanksgiving. Like, I didn't mention to anybody anything like that. And he looked at me, I think it was like Monday, before that Thursday. And he was like, what you doing for Thanksgiving? And I was like, I'm not sure. And I was like, he was like, I know what you're doing. You gonna leave with me when we leave for the day, like the day prior. And he was like, you're gonna stay in my house and you're gonna have dinner with my family. And I was like, no, I'm not. That's not. So like, I'm not doing that. And he's like, all right. And this is unlawful, right? But I didn't know any better. He was like, well, okay, I can't make you to sleep in my house, right? Like, but I'm picking you up at 1600 on Thursday, and you're gonna have dinner with us. And if you're not in the pier at 1600, I'll write you up. Right? Like that shouldn't be
right.
But what it was that level of like, you don't have nowhere to go, and I was just being too proud because I didn't want to ask, and I didn't want to feel like a burden. And he was like, nah, you come. And he invited other people too, so it was like 3 or 4 of us there. And I'm just grateful to this day because I was very hesitant even when I got there, and his family was wonderful. His 2 little girls were amazing, and I had just such an amazing dinner. And I didn't miss home because I felt at home, if that makes sense. So.
Hey, bro, you just touched my soul, bro. You know what I mean?
It was beautiful, bro.
Like, so outside of the fact that you speaking on a time, right? And that hit my soul, right? Because it ain't just blood salt. It's that time. A lot of people was affected by things in that way. And it was that type of impact, bro. But what touched my soul, right, is that, like, for instance, like right now, man, like, I'll talk too much about where I'm at right now. But it'd be like, hey, you know, hey, I just make up stuff. Hey, you know, we got an opportunity to go to Mars. You know, they want us to go to Mars. Oh, nah, none of the sellers interested. You know, hey, it's a hill. All we gotta do is walk up and we could everybody get $1 million. Yeah, no appetite for that. No sellers ain't interested. You know, and I'm like, yo, are the sellers like ever gonna be interested? You know, and if they're not ever going to be interested, then when do we start kind of like trying to have some influence over interest, right? And I don't mean like making them go do stuff, but like, how are we advertising these like events? And I saw it on my carrier where it was the holiday party. It wasn't a cool thing. Nobody wanted to go. Shout out to EM1 Bruton. Hey, Bruton, you already know I'm going to shout your ass out. Shout out to Bruton, right? Me and him had a conversation about things like that. And the next day, he was already doing it. So it wasn't based off our conversation. He kind of brought the conversation to me. But the next day, he went in there and he sold those fucking holiday tickets. Like, he went in there, and after he spoke, 6-7 hands went up. Like, I want holiday, to the point where damn near my whole division was at the holiday party. But if it would have just kept being, hey, the holiday party, such and such, here go tickets. No, he was like, nah, hey, y'all, this holiday party is kind of cool. They got door prizes. People went and got I don't think, you know, we just feel like as long as we say it was said, you can move on. I
feel that myself, and I got to the point where I need to. I became more intentional, right? When I especially so I went for the transition from being on a DDG to then being in the Desron. So I went from having a division to like being the C cell, and but I had everybody was like very senior, so like. I wasn't involved with sailors a lot because I was the C cell. Yes, I went to the destroyer and I visit, but they're not my sailors. I don't see them all the time, right? So when I got to Sicily, that's the first time that I had like a big group of sailors. And I had the largest department, and sometimes that department would go all the way to like 90 or almost to 100 people. And I remember being there and like already having the same mindset, like I don't go to holiday parties because I don't like going to holiday parties, by the way. So I went in with that mindset, and I don't remember who was, but someone did say like, so how are they supposed to want to go when like you don't want to go or you're like, you're not going to show up yourself, right? And I'm like, why do I need to do everything to them that could be doing it, right? Like I shouldn't be there because senior chief, because those seniors at the time is doing it and they're going to do it. And the person was like, it's not just that. It's not that you have to do everything for them then to follow. But if you're being genuine on the sense of like, you know, even if you're not going to go, but at least like, I'm not going, but this is why you should go, or this is why, you know, or at least I did it when I was in your stage. I just outgrew it, whatever, right? But at least like trying in that situation. And then, you know, I was single back then, and I was getting, you know, cola and all that sort of stuff. And I'm able to manage my money pretty well because I only spend it with travel. And then I'm very like frugal when it comes to other things. So then I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to raffle some tickets. So I went and I said, who wants to go? And of course, at first, they didn't believe it that I was going to do that. So like, I only got like 6 people that wanted to go. So I didn't even have to raffle. And I just bought the tickets for them. And I just gave them at quarters. And then, you know, I get the hands like, how come I didn't get a ticket? And I was just like, well, I gave everybody the opportunity to like give me names or whatever. And then, you know, someone wanted to like see what I was going to say. And they were like, well, are you going to go? And I was like, yep. But you were saying that you were not going to go. And I was like, well, I wanted to see all of you in a different environment where you're able to talk to me and it's not just senior chief and I get to see your family. And like the person that I was talking to, it just happened to be that he had a little girl. And I was like, I can meet your daughter, right? Because I haven't met her. We haven't even had a picnic yet because I got there in October. So we haven't had this summer picnic. And I'm not saying that like it changed a lot of people, but like another like 10 or 20 more tickets. And then by the next year, I think about 80% of my department went to the Christmas holiday, right?
Yeah, bro.
And it was just a simple, like, again, I took it because someone else put me in the spot, by the way. So I'm not going to take credit, right? It was someone else that was like, oh, you're talking like, how come they don't go? But where are you? What you going? I guess I'll go. Right?
I'm so anti-social, bro. And I just got to my carrier. And my sellers, bro, when I walked in, and I wasn't going to go to a holiday party. When I walked in and I finally got to where my sellers were, all I hear is, senior. Like, and I'm like, oh, they about to embarrass me and all that. But they was like legit, like, they kind of made me happy that I came and showed up that night. Yeah, because I was geo-batching and all that shit, man. I want to get back to the book. So you leave the coal and they tell you that you could go anywhere you want, but it
had to be sea duty.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Even the crazier part was I wanted to go to San Diego because, I mean, I wanted to be like, it wasn't that I heard so much stuff like I know now about San Diego, but just simply I wanted to go to a different coast. I joined the military to see the world, right?
Yeah.
And the detailer was like, nah, we ain't got no racks for a seaman in San Diego. And I was like, the what? Like there's no damn way that you don't need an ITSN and a ship in San Diego that only has a sea bag. I wasn't married. I didn't even have a car to ship. Like, it was, you could have put me in a plane that same day and I would be good going to another ship. So I said, well, if I'm not going to go, then I'll just stay on the ship because, like, I was told that it was going to be treated like a pre-com unit. So I was going to be able to go to schools, which I did. But yeah, like, they were not, like, trying to hear it about going anywhere. Like, I had to still do my sea duty time. Yeah. And that's why I stayed on the coal. And then I went to Mississippi while I was getting fixed.
Yeah.
And that's still a thing now. I mean, at least a few years ago, like when I think it was the Fitzgerald, they had them go back to sea if they to finish their sea time. And I just thought that was crazy then. But it's crazy that it was the same way back then.
From the coal, but I guess not.
They didn't.
And if I had the choice, I would stay on my ship too. I would ride it out. I would stay there, watch her come back to life. And, you know, I would want to be a part. If you're going to send me back to another ship, I'm going to stay, you know.
With mine,
with my girl. Yeah. I'm staying with my girl, man. We going to get up out of this together. You know, that's just, you know. So,
you know, Amaury going to make it
work. Yeah. Hey, now, speaking of making it work, right? The hardest part of this book for me was watching. I'm like, yo, man, my bro is down bad with this one girl. Like, yo, you was wide open for this command girl, and she was putting you through hell. The other girl like you like, nah, I don't want nothing to do with you. I want her.
I want the toxic one.
Crazy thing is, I've been in a situation like this. It happened to me before, right? But what made you want her so much?
So let's start with, the first thing. She was beautiful, right?
Yeah.
She still is beautiful, right? So like you get caught up on that, right? And then she was very sweet. Like take away the other stuff. She was very sweet and very smart, right? So all those things were really fun to me. She could dance her ass off. So like when we were in to go to ports, she would be dancing and all that stuff. So there was all these different things. And what I will say, as much as like I will say about like, well, she was toxic, she did this, she did that. She did warn me though. If you read in the book, she told me I'm still in love with this guy. Mm-hmm. And I just made the mistake that every other person that gets involved with someone else is, I'm going to make sure that he leaves your heart. Like I'm going to do what I got to do. It doesn't work like that. Right. So and then it became an obsession of like I had to prove to myself that I was going to be capable of doing. So even every time she would stump me, or do something that would be like, most guys would have been like, fuck you, and move on. I will be like, no, I'm gonna get her. Like she's gonna love me because I'm Amaury Ponciano. Like, what the fuck you mean? You're not gonna fall in love with all this? So a lot of that was self-inducing, right? Like it was just like not loving myself, right? Like it's just the right way to say it, right? Like it just I didn't have the fortitude to say like, don't let anybody treat you that way, right? And then it became that. It became like there's no way that like the finest woman that in the ship, so I thought, is not gonna be with me. Like I know she's interested, but now I gotta make her fall in love with me, no matter what it takes. I went through hell with it. I learned a lot of lessons with it, right? And
that hotel story was crazy, bro. Like the hotel, dude.
So to this day, right? Because she's the mother of my daughter, right? Okay. Right. So my daughter read the book, by the way.
Hey,
so
that was a question that I was about to ask. It's somewhere on my list.
In her bank of information, and even her was like, she did what? And I was like, yeah. She brought the old guy, and I gotta give him respect because he saw me. Like he literally, I opened the door, they opened the door, here it comes. Because it wasn't only just him. It was like, she brought like a party, because I had like a suite. It was like huge hotel room. Like it was literally like a living room, and then I had like my own room, and then there was another room where my boy was staying.
Out. Yeah,
I went all out like little third class. Someone else opened the door, and she come like through people started like 4 or 5 people, and then her, and then at the end is him. Yeah, but he's way taller than her. Like he's more my height, and we lock eyes, and then he says, "Whose room is this?" And I'm like, "It's mine." And I got to give him props because he could have been a real asshole and be like, "Hey, she invited me, so forget you." He was like, "Nah, this is not cool," and he left. Right? At least she didn't follow him. Like, where you go?
Yeah.
Right.
But I was not happy for the rest of the night, and it was so many different episodes of. She was young too, right? She was probably she's like a year or two older than me, but nothing too crazy. At that stage, we're talking about 20 and 22. So it's not like, 2 grown adults. So there was a lot of mistakes on both sides, right? And then, we stayed together, and then we broke up, and then that's when she got pregnant, and I wanted her to be in a relationship with me. Here I go trying at all costs. And that look that she gave me when I dropped her off my house is like, just because I'm pregnant doesn't mean we're going to be together. And I was like, man. And that was the last thing though. Like that's when I finally crossed the line. I was like, all right, bet. And like finally moved on. But it took a lot. And we have talked about it through the years, right? And acknowledged that there was a lot of bad things on both sides, right? But yeah, I that episode, I think about now, if I was seeing someone how I am now, I would have fucking lost it. If someone like you bring the guy that you told me that you are in love with, and you bring it to my room that I'm paying for.
Right.
Nah, we ain't having that shit. Like,
it's like, bro, that's like only in the Navy. Like that, like that's like a Navy story. Like at heart, like like shit like that be happening. Like, it's crazy. Like, cause I'm thinking about my own Navy stories. Like
right.
So
that's why these sailors, like, when we be trying to tell them, they be thinking like we don't know anything. It's like, we know. Been there, done that, got a t-shirt.
Yeah, we've seen this movie before. I was the starting actor in that movie. Like, I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, it's funny because I got a question to you about movies. It's funny because I just said I had a question about movies, and this wasn't it, but this is still a question about movies. So I don't know where I got to in this book where this came up, but the question I wrote down was, is watching porn cheating?
Oh, so I can tell you why it was in my head before. It's not anymore. It was before because when I started dating the next person after the mother of my daughter, the one that we got into the fight, the one that was breaking my house, that person.
And ain't eat your mom food. The one that ain't eat your mom food.
The one that ain't my mom food. So my mom to this day don't like her. That's how that whole big fight happened, because I bought a computer. It wasn't even a laptop. It was like an old desktop, the big chunky monitor back in the day. And the person that I bought it from and his cookies and things brought in history, he had porn. Like, he'd been to porn sites.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you that I was not going to do that either, but until then, I haven't. And I was in the gym. We had one of our many breakups. So, like, I live in a different apartment. She didn't. And I left my keys. And I was like, you could just, grab it and go into the apartment. And I went to the gym. I come out maybe an hour and 20 minutes workout. I had 53 missed calls and about like 30 messages.
Yeah, she was living, bro.
And she was just leaving shit like, you fucking watching porn?
Yeah.
And like, you need to call me back. And then I finally, I call her because I see like all these messages, and I could hear her throwing anything and everything that she can find in my apartment, like just destroying my apartment. And when the mistake that we make as men, especially, like, you get to an argument with a woman, and then like when she start asking you the same thing, then you're like, yeah, I did that, even if you did not do it. Like, and I made that mistake. Oh my God, that just made it worse. Like, more shit was getting to break. And so I got to my house, and she started hitting me, but she was smart enough, because I'm not going to say this like I'm proud or that I think that it's okay to do. I just know that 24, 25-year-old Amaury would have done it. I'm glad that she didn't hit me in my face, because I would have hit her back. Like, I'm not saying it as a brag. I'm not saying that that's how men should be doing. But that's how I even told her before, because I know she got aggressive with me before. I was like, if you ever hit me in my face, I'm gonna hit you back like a man. So she hit me from here down the entire time. And I'm over here like this on the phone with 911. And I'm like, you better come get this girl, because like, she's destroying my house and she's hitting me. And I locked myself in a room because they told me to do that. She kept throwing stuff. Like, she threw my PlayStation so hard that it jammed in the wall. Like, it was stuck in the middle of the wall because she hit it like so hard.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it got quiet, and then she hit herself. So when the cops came, she accused me of hitting her, but thankfully the cops were smart enough that they like, let me see your hand, like mine and hers. And the hands were not the same. Like, my hand's a lot bigger than hers. But yeah, man, like, so to answer the question, back then, I would think it's a form of cheating. Even for me, like, although I would have done it if she would have been her, my insecurities as a 24-year-old, I would have been like, yeah. Today, no, I just, at least for me doing it, and most of all, my lady doing it. Like, if she wants to look at porn, I don't care. I like, do you, like, whatever it is that you need. Because I tell you, someone that I was dating when I was in Sicily, she was all into this rough stuff, and I'm not into that. So if you need to watch that to satisfy that need, please do so, because I'm not gonna be tying you up and doing all this crazy stuff. You see what I'm saying? So like, you have to understand, like, it gets to a point, at least in my age, I'm 43, I'm about to be 44, where I know what I'm capable of and what I can do and what I cannot do. And if you need that kind of satisfaction by looking at that, can it be detrimental? It can be, right? It can be where we get into the side of confusing what you're seeing, which is a different type of art, and people are getting paid to do things that most natural people will not do. Unless you're getting paid. And that's where it becomes the problem, when you expect your partner to be doing some of the scenes that you just watch.
Yeah, you like, yo, run up, come back, flip, do a hand. Lady, like, what?
What?
Yeah.
No, I'm
like,
about
I'm
to
not
lay
doing
down
that.
here like we did yesterday.
Hey, the way I look at it is like, look, like, I'm not a football player. I love fantasy football. I know for what it is. And then after that, I come back to real life. So as long as you look at it in that perspective, that you know that it's full of fantasy, that there's people that are getting paid, that they're not showing, what might have hurt or would have been uncomfortable because they're getting a specific amount of money or whatever. And you don't try to bring that to your life and expect your partner to be doing these things, unless you do have a conversation and that's something that you want to do. Like, that's something that you might still be able to do. But the expectation to be that my woman is going to do everything that I'm saying, that's when it becomes unhealthy, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, hey, young sellers. It's funny, I'm going to make this a young sellers moment, Tish. Young sellers. Don't try to spring it on your lover, like, hey, go to the oven. Cause you know how y'all ladies are, Tish, y'all act like y'all just don't know what we talking about. Like, like, I'm saying, go to the oven. Like, you like messing up the mood. Hey,
like, what you talking about?
Yeah, like, just go to the oven. Like,
y'all really
somewhere.
Right, y'all really be doing the most.
Hit the ottoman, like, come halfway off the. All right. Hey, order in the court, right? Hey, so look, it ain't even order in the court. When you go to England, right? You go to England and you got a starting five.
Bro.
Hey, for the listeners, he's not proud of none of this, right? This is his past. This is his life. This what created his story, right? I'm going to make sure I keep saying that. But you go to England and you got a starting five of women. How do you even keep up with this, man?
Right.
First of all, you lie a lot.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying it with pride. I'm just simply saying, like, the facts of, like, that's the only way that you maintain something so ridiculous, because it is what it is, right? Like, it might sound exciting or whatever, and it was at that time, right? But like, there was a lot of people that got hurt because of that, right? Like, I was not. Actually, I got to a point that I had 6, and I think there was 2 that knew that I was seeing other people that just did not know how many. Yeah. But then the other ones did not know, or I did not give him the choice of saying, hey, I'm still seeing other people. Are you okay with that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. I remember telling one of my boys that I literally was going to take leave because I was so tired.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting. Honestly.
Yeah,
it was because you think about it, like the other 4 that were not doing something. I don't know for sure, right? I didn't. So let's say that out of those 4, truly 3 were not doing something, right? But I'm seeing out of those 3, I'm seeing one Monday because I had date for each of them, right? Because I was so busy. So like, if you're only seeing me, and we're talking about 26, 27-year-old men and women that are in their prime of wanting to have relations as often as possible. Well, if I'm just going to throw a name, Jessica on Mondays, only Mondays. Jessica is ready on Monday, like ready. Yeah. But I've been doing my thing every day. Yeah. So when Monday will come, she's ready to give me 100%. I got 10.
Yeah. And
Right?
you never like messed with like no like pills or nothing to help that out or nothing.
No,
Okay.
I didn't have to do that, or even to this day, I don't have those issues. That's why young fellas stay working out, drink a lot of water, eat good food. You know, I'm just saying like that was my pill, man, to stay healthy. But what was happening is I was exhausted. Like it would just, there's women leaving my house at 2:00 in the morning, and then I'm running PT at 6:30 because I was a CFL, right, on a Wednesday, right, or just simply again, like I'm not trying to make it sound like it just this cool thing or like trying to degrade it more than what already is, because I'm already like I was sleeping with so many women, but like I was literally, like I said, like I would see Jessica just on Monday, so Jessica expecting a whole evening with me, right? Because she only gets to see me once a week.
Yeah.
So like that became exhausting. Like I literally my boys were like laughing at me because I was like, I'm taking leave. And they're like, what you doing?
That's crazy.
I'm like, I'm going to another country and just chill. Like I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to be on my own because like it became overwhelming. And then the lies, right? Like you got to be lying because Jessica, and I keep using that name, but like she might want to like now do Wednesday too, like, and then I would be like, well, I got to do this and I got to wake up early for PT.
Yeah.
But that was because I had someone else that was supposed to come. And then little by little, they just started going away because I was not giving them the attention more than just the bedroom, right? Like, and we all, after a while, like we want more. Like, I don't care what you talk about, especially if you stay for a while, like, having a situation with someone, someone is catching feelings, someone is going to want more. And that's what happened. I did that for like almost 3 months and it was exhausting.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's crazy because
I was about to say, why so many? Like, how many was going to be enough? Like, why so many?
Well, we know.
So a lot of that has to do with like the low self-esteem that I had, right? Like that to be able to feel like I don't know necessarily if it was just the low self-esteem with my looks or my own endeavors as a man. So as you'll read in the book, and as I've been going to counseling, I found out later on that it had to do a lot with the sexual assault that happened to me, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So when that happens from another man, it becomes, you start questioning your masculinity. Like, so that was a way of expressing that without even knowing it, right? You would have asked me at that moment, I was like, I just love women, man. Like, what the hell are you talking about? There's all these beautiful women that want a part of me. Bet, let's do it, right? But it was trying to do that. It was trying deep down inside, somewhere in here, it was a way to prove to myself that I'm not gay. I'm just simply going to call it for what it is, right? And I don't mean to offend anybody. Not that gay is a bad thing. It's just simply like I was trying to express it to myself. And that, unfortunately, that was my way. Like, and I, not trying to brag, but like, they just went from 8 to 8.5 to 9. They were all gorgeous, all smart. Like they were beautiful women. So that will add into my ego, and I needed that, and that was my way. And like I said, I didn't put 2 and 2 together until later on, and the many therapies and counseling that I have received.
Yeah, it was like negative. It was like a negative form of therapy for you. Like if you get an alcohol addiction or something, it's another like addictive behavior that you get in to fulfill something that
fill a void, right?
Yep. Yeah, and you said you were assaulted, right? And it's funny because we were working our way there, but we're here now, right? So you said you got assaulted by a male, right? Now this person was a chief, right? Now, quite like I didn't have this written down, but did you have any? Going through the season last year, it was a chief select who was assaulted by a chief. And it was very hard for her to accept the chiefs, just the idea of being a chief and stuff like that. And I know men, sometimes we're a little different when it comes to stuff like that. Did that affect your opinion about chiefs at all?
I'm so thankful that I took that individual as one. Even as an early stage, even before I even got to being a chief or going through the ranks, I never looked at a chief and said, you your brother did this, so you are not a good chief. Never.
Yeah.
Like, I'm grateful that I didn't have that. But I think it's also because I try to not think about that as a whole. So I put it like in this coffin and like, because then if I will, let's say you were my chief and we have second class. If I start, even if you were a really bad chief and I start, that means that I have to bring these feelings back up. And I didn't want to do that. So let's not even do that. So in a way, I'm thankful that because I submerged those feelings of that experience, I never looked at a chief. I might have looked at it because they were fat and I will be like, you need to get your shit together, or other stuff, but never compare the two or even not have trust for the mess. Because one, and this is where I think a lot of sailors need to understand certain things like this. One, nobody from the mess knew that. So how can I blame the mess for something that one person did that I didn't say anything? And he damn sure was not going to tell anybody, right? So like, how are you supposed to defend me as a little second class if you're not aware of what is happening, right?
Right.
So you know what I mean? So that was something that I always had in the back of my head as well. Like, how can I blame any mess for something that they didn't have any control? That was an individual that made that decision. He made that decision. He did use his power as the chief to like persuade me into then to do what he did and then to tell me to be quiet because nobody's going to believe a seaman compared to a chief.
Yeah.
But that was him. That was not the institution. That's not all the anchors. That was just that individual. And I'm grateful that I looked at it from even an early stage in my career for that. It sucked. It was horrible, but that was him. And I will never put that on anybody else because that's kind of like not giving that person the responsibility. Like that's like giving other people things that that like it's different if it would have been more like of a harassment and it's happening in front of others and they didn't say anything. Yeah, then let's talk about it because you're seeing like I'm seeing you talking to a young lady a certain way or touching her a certain way, but nobody. I was in his office. It was locked. I didn't say anything. I didn't report it. I didn't go to anybody else. So how am I expecting the chief's mess to know, how many people we know, like take away the mess, the chief, the Navy, that you see in the news and they do something ridiculous and something very hurtful and the wife and family, they're like, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I would have never. So, you know what I mean? So like, it's the same thing for me. Like something that's that dark, I can't blame them, anybody. So I'm grateful that I never hold that grudge.
Yeah. And Teach, when we talked to old Fleet Kingsbury, retired Fleet Kingsbury on his podcast. And remember when I was saying like the Chiefs mess is tricky to me, right? Just so even the listeners can understand, that's kind of what I was saying is that when we're in the mess, like some of that dark side shit that you're talking about, we never see that from our peers in the mess. Right. Like, it's not like the toxicity comes in the mess. Like, dudes in there eating, the ladies in there eating, we joking, we coking and joking. Then somebody is leaving there and giving their junior sailor hell for 5 days. But I don't see that. And this is the person I was talking to about the Eagles game. And, I don't like, so a lot of times you don't. Now, I'm not excusing the messes that have had those instances where they did all know. But a lot of times what I see in the mess is like people that I think are cool as hell. And like you said, it happens in real life. Like neighbors didn't know that it was 5 people in the basement. Like this person was a cool neighbor. They went to work every day. It could get, hey, what happened? Did you follow this guy at all after this incident?
No, I think I didn't report it. I think I mentioned it the first time I mentioned it, I'm talking about now I'm like 10 years into counseling. And the counselor was like, did you make a report? And I was like, no, what is it going to do? Mind you, I'm a chief already by that time. And I'm like, what is it going to do? And she's like, well, at the very least, it will be in the stats and it will be in the things that like categorize on how, like how we're doing with this. And like, like it just would feel a lot of like the stats of like what kind of, he was a white guy. So it would be like Caucasian, what age, like it would just put, we all not like datas, like how often it happen and what usually is the ranks that this happened to. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And then it took to me to talk to my daughter's mom, because she was the first person that found out, because she was also in the same ship as me. And I let her know, and and like I felt okay to express it, and she didn't judge me because she knew him as well. So like her reaction was not like taking his side, right? And like she was very compassionate towards me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And I reported it. By the time I reported it, he was already retired, so it wasn't gonna be. And I made it a restricted report at the time. Like I didn't care for anything to follow. I didn't need that for my closure.
Yeah.
But I will say, and I think I mentioned it on the book, is I regret that I didn't say anything right away, because I'm 100%, well, 99.9, because I don't know it, right? So did this happen before or happen again?
I was about to say that. It just seems like just the way it happened to you, it seems like this was a MO for this person.
I was just going to say, I was going to say that, like you, we all make certain mistakes, or I've done certain things, right? And like for me, I've done things that I'm not very proud of, right? Like, and it always started with something small, right? Like, so if I'm been a cheater, right? Like I have that in my book. It starts with like maybe one time, right? Like I just slip up and, and I just did it with that girl. And then that's it. It was just a one night stand and whatever, right? Like nothing more. Then it becomes, now I'm spending the night with that person or that. And then now I'm seeing her twice. You know what I mean? So it graduates. Yeah. It keeps, that's what I'm trying to get at. And the way that he did it was so thorough, and to get me to the office, to do what he wanted to do. And then the things that he said, that's not something that happens like in that moment. This is something that had happened before. And I'm not trying to make light of this, but like you have the game plan already. Like you knew how this was going to go down, and you knew what reaction, you were going to do and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's the one thing I regret. Like, I regret it big time that I did not say anything, but I was so young, and I was scared of telling you as my chief, because I was embarrassed that you were going to be like, well, you let it happen. Because I felt a lot of guilt. And I think this is why I've been more compassionate when I hear stories about women, and you hear that the woman froze, because I froze.
Yeah.
When it happened to me.
Hey, so you ever think about what you would do or what you would say if you happen to see this person today?
I thought about it once. Actually, twice. The first time it was the anger thought. Like I would, how can you do that to a 20-year-old, a kid, right? That trusted you, right? That like had all this trust because you were chief, because of your position. Like you just broke that trust and like fucked me up for a long time, right? But then as I got older, I would still talk to him and kind of say that too, but it will be more like, but you didn't break me, bro. Like here I am. Like, like I live with it. It's something that it's something that like, I don't talk to everybody, and I know that I have tendencies to this day still that has something to do with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that my conversation will be more of like, like you didn't break me, and it's sad that like you living your life that way, right? Because again, I would tell him like, I don't think I was the only one. And you probably fucked a lot of people over in their head and how they feel. I hope you could, I will put that back on him. Like I will put that back to like he now, because you know what happens when you get older, because it happens with my dad right now. He's older. So like you start to find Jesus, and you starting to, send all these texts and telling people inscriptions. And if he's finding Jesus right now, he needs to fucking find out that what he did was not right. So I will definitely put it back on him in that sense of like, you didn't break me, but what you did was fucked up. And I hope that you are praying every single day for forgiveness, because you're going to fucking need it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you remember your earliest example of a loving relationship between a man and a woman?
Ooh. It's hard because even like my uncles and aunt, they had really loving relationship to an extent. There was a level of machismo that it would just not discuss or done, but because that's how culture was. So it was like tolerated, right? But to them it was love, right? So like my uncle, I would say my Aunt Sonia and my Uncle Luis were the two that like, I didn't see them arguing. And I saw a lot of like loving and stuff, but like at the same time, there was a lot of, she worked, he worked, but yet when she got home, she had to cook, she had to clean, and he will have to sit on the table. And, you know, some women enjoy doing that regardless, right? I don't think my aunt care for doing that, like in the sense of like it didn't bother her. But when I like to think about really like a loving relationship, I have to go into like my adulthood and seeing some of like other friends, right?
Yeah. Having
a very loving relationship. I remember I was stationed in Nick Tam's land, and it was a second class, and I was a third class at the time. And he was young, she was young too, and then been like high school sweethearts, and it was still that freaking lovey-dovey from like high school, and although they were like 24, right? And like that was the first time I saw like this dude will come out on being on watch and have dinner, because we had the night watch with her in her car, in the car, so they could have dinner together. Like she would come, bring him dinner, and it would just, you know. And then she started going to school, and like the tables kind of like turned where he would be the one like doing stuff for her, and like it was so like natural, and like I didn't hear a complaint from him. Like I didn't hear you know, oh, I gotta be the one that's gotta cook, and like, or he'll be like, you know, because we as men can take even that level of kindness and love that she displayed by driving to the base, bringing you a warm meal. Even that, as men, sometimes be like, I gotta go have dinner with a wife because that's what she wants. You know what I mean? Like we even take that for granted, right? I never heard that dude say that. Like I never. Like he was eager, if anything. Like, y'all got like 5 more minutes to keep this conversation because I gotta go. Like, my baby's outside, right? Like, that was like the first time that I saw like a really devotion and love from both ends, right? Because sometimes there's one side that you got love and devotion, and the other one takes it for granted. But I saw it on both ends, and it was beautiful. And then they had a little girl, and like. They were mixed, like she was African American, he was white, and the baby was like just gorgeous, and like he was just it was like a lot of love and a lot of like understanding. But then they struggle with other people because of the mixed race, and we're talking about 2001, 2002. So like it was a lot of struggle outside, not them. They were very strong, and like I think that unified even more that there were outside things that were trying to break them, and they were like, nah, that's
what's up. That's what's
you can
up.
leave all that noise.
Yeah.
That's what's up. What you got, Teach? You got a question?
Well, it's not related to that, but I did want to talk about your like fatherhood. And one of my questions is, because I see how close you are with your kids, particularly your daughter. Like, first off, you know, when it comes to girls, we gonna always have y'all wrapped. Domo is figuring that out now. We gonna keep hope alive. Like it's done. It's done for. But I love y'all's relationship. I love that y'all travel together. I think that's really cool. That even made me think about like, dang, I don't really travel with my boys that much. I think they travel more than me, but I'm like, dang, we don't necessarily travel together as much. So that had me thinking about that. But my question is, how did your upbringing, where like you had a period where you were separated physically from your mom, where she was in the States, you were still in the DR, and then that relationship that you had with your dad, how did that change your fatherhood style? When you looked at that, were you like, what did you see? Like, this is the type of father I want to be.
So yeah, like that was it manifested in the sense, like, I'm gonna be honest, that I took a lot of, like, I don't want to be like my dad, or I don't want to be like my mother in some aspects. Like, I want to, for example, to this day, I'm not on wood, I have a 22-year-old, a 10-year-old. I never put my hands on either, not once, right? And I could go a whole 2 hours and tell you how many times I got hit. One, it's a common thing in Dominican Republic, so it's not like beating. Like, they don't care in DR. Like, you get beat. And then two, I was a badass little boy. So you put those two things together, and it happens. But that was one thing. Like, I did not like that growing up. Like, I didn't appreciate that, and I still got scars mentally of those kind of things. So I refused to having to put my hand. Have I tapped my son? Because my daughter was peace. My son, I love him to death, but he just me. So he got a lot of stuff that I gotta, like, put him on check. So yes, I have to, like, tap him in there, especially when he was very little. Don't touch this or whatever. But I never had to, like, spank him in any kind of way. So that's one thing. But then the second thing was, it was not only my childhood, but it was also the choices that I made by chasing the rank, by chasing, or even trying to be away from women, right? Like, something happened that I took away from some of my daughters. So I will tell you that, like, the first 8 or 9 years of my daughter's life, I was a horrible father. Like, I was good when I was present, but I was a lot. And it wasn't just because of the Navy. I made a lot of bad choices, from having ladies that will tell me not to see her, and I will be like, okay, like, yeah, I'll spend more time.
That was crazy.
Taking orders to go to Bahrain because I didn't want to be close to the crazy lady, but although she was crazy and hit me, I couldn't, like, just simply break up with her. I had to, like, leave because I knew I was going to go back. Like, I was in that toxic kind of relationship, right? Like, I made those choices. It was me. Like, it was not the Navy. Like, you know, I you know, if you see, you know, where I went, I'm like, man, he went to Bahrain. I chose that, even with my daughter being here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm in IT. I could go anywhere. I could have stayed in Norfolk the entire time. And now I could have gone through, like, 50 commands and not moved from Norfolk. But I make those choices. So as, like, she gotten older and I gotten older, it's like I'm making up for time. So it looks like I'm being a great dad or whatever, but it's truly, a lot of it is, I love doing those things with her. That's like our thing, and I love that we have that. But a lot of that, if I'm being completely honest, it's also guilt. Of not being there before when I needed to be. So I'm very conscious of building relationship with her. Like, I continue to this day, like, it's an evolution every day of, like, you know, she's a young lady now. So you know, we have this togetherness and this tightness that, like, I love because she's open to me about everything, right? Yeah. But I had to build that, right? I had to, like, be, I like to use this at work a lot, and I use it in my personal life, have intent. I'm doing things with intent and a purpose. Yes, we're going to go to this trip. We're going to be somewhere that we both enjoy, that we could be together by ourselves, so we could talk, it's our time together. And I got to give kudos to my ex-wife, my son's mother, because she was the one that first brought up that idea when I first took it to Barcelona. She was the one that, if she wouldn't have said that, I don't know if I'd ever done that about taking her to different countries. And she said it like, not only do you like to travel, but then you can be with your daughter and show her the world, but then you be in a remote location where it's only the two of you and you don't have a choice, but, like, just the two of you talk. Because those places where, you know, sometimes not even, like, we went to Qatar, and although they speak English or whatever, like, that's a different culture. So it had to be the two of us. We went to Paris. We don't speak French. So it was just the two of us. So yeah, to make the story short, it's a wonderful relationship, and I love it, and I continue to get to learn her every day even more. But a lot of it just guilt. Because I'm not trying to make it, you know, make it sound like I've been a great dad this entire time, because I was I was loving. When I was around her, I paid, full attention. I'm supportive. I gave her everything that she needed more. But I was away a lot. And it wasn't just that I made choices that had repercussions. And then that was not spending time with my daughter.
Yeah. I did have another question, but I'm trying to remember what it was. Taking that segue to baby mamas, non-baby mamas. It seems like you have a great relationship with the mother of your kids. And I love that. So I do want you to speak on that, because I think there's so much of the opposite. And you even spoke about like opening up to the mother of your daughter, about something that was so personal. And it's like y'all have a good connection, even though you are, so far removed. And a lot of people will look at that, and think that it might be weird or it's uncommon. So I just want you to speak on that aspect of, the mother of your kids and cultivating that atmosphere that is only conducive to your daughters and your son.
Yeah, let's start with that. I hate that term of baby mama, right? Like,
right.
If people say it, they can say, I just don't like to call them that. Like,
that's why I said baby mama, non-baby mama.
I feel, because I think when you start like that way, even if I'm about to start and say something good about them, I think people right away, baby mama. They start with a negative connotation. So that's reason number one. And second, and most importantly though, is a testament to the two of them, right? Because if you think about it, so my daughter's mom, she put me through a lot of stuff at the beginning, and I was just chasing her and all this other stuff. But then it came to a period that I was the one that was like, in quote unquote, even using her, for lack of other words, right? Yet she didn't allow that personal issues that we might have had interfere with we being parents. And then the same thing with my ex-wife. I cheated on her. And a lot of women, they could get very vindictive because of that. Like, they take like two and two together. Like, you broke this marriage. That also mean like you don't deserve your child. And I'm saying every woman, but some do that, right? And to her credit, she didn't, right? She separated those two things to the point where even like separating, like even money, right? Like I remember, when you get divorced, between alimony and like all the stuff that you got to pay, like, she was straight up to the lawyer, like, no, I want what I require, which was child support. She's like, but I don't want nothing else, because I want him to be able to see his son and take him to do stuff. Like, if he's broke, like, he can't do any of that stuff. You know what I mean? And so my good relationship with them is because of them, right? Like, I do my part, right? Like, I take care of my children. I try to be very open and vocal about what I feel or what I want to do, but it starts with them, right? And but I guess also to then go back to the sense of like why there's that level of respect is because I have acknowledged since day one my flaws and my downfalls, right? So I think it's easier for a woman in their case to be more forgiving or be more open to respect me, because I'm not out here saying, I cheated on my ex-wife, but it was because she didn't do this. I just cheated on her. Like, it doesn't matter what it was, right? So like when you put it in that perspective, then there's a level of like, I'm not putting, because ultimately when you cheat, in my case, no matter what they did, the other person did, like, it's your fault. Like, no matter what, like, the solution, if I didn't like my marriage, was to get divorced. Like that, So like for me to try to look at it, all these excuses, well, she didn't cook for me, or she didn't do this for me, or she didn't do whatever I want to throw out there. It's trying to take responsibility for my action, right? So I think that has influenced the way of how we treat each other, right? Like, because although I disrespected her by cheating, and I'm using my ex-wife in this case, I still show her respect in how I present that to people, because we like to play that facade of like, well, she didn't do this, so that's why I cheated. Like, I want to throw it back to her when she didn't have nothing to do with this. Like
Right.
even if she was not cooking, let's say that's what I want to use. Like it should have been a conversation. And if nothing happened, then I should have got divorced. I should have not like that's not an excuse for it, right?
Right.
So and ultimately, man, and the bottom line is we all three of us, because then I used my daughter's mom, is we focus on the children. Like that's the most important thing out of all
Right.
this. Because when you do all that bickering and you do all the stuff that other couples have done and you have this bad relationships, at the end of the day, the children is ultimately who suffer because they see it, or I'm not being allowed to see them as often, and then it affects them. Like so I'm very lucky that they see it that way as well. It's like no matter how shitty Amaury is, like he's still a good dad. At least he's good at that. So I want my children to be around their dad, right? And again, it's just having communications. And then like when people come in my end, when they're the times that I've been in a relationship or themselves, because they both have remarried, it's also showing that respect to that spouse, right? Like setting expectations, right? Or like I don't call after a certain time. Like I don't care. Like I don't, now my children are older, so I could directly call them. But when they were younger, I knew that after 8:00, I'm not calling unless it's something emergency. So you have to set boundaries, even though we're very comfortable and we understand each other. I still have to respect their spouses, right? And the same when I was married, right? Like, so when you do little things like that and you show respect and you allow to have those conversations and you even bring those people, like right now, like my son, mother's case, she's married. He's a wonderful man. Like if my son is not going to be around me, I'm glad that he's around him, right? I let him know that though. I acknowledge it, right? I let her know that too, like that I'm happy that she's happy and that she has a right person, to be around my son, right? And then that just makes it easier. Like just the other day, I went to Vegas and I brought my fiance and my daughter, and we all got together because that's where my son lives now. And my ex-wife invited me to have, to their barbecue with her family because he has 2 other kids and him. And I was spending most of the afternoon chit-chatting with him, right? Like it just, you build those relationships, right? And people are going to be guarded, and it's up to you to embrace it and say, hey, for the well-being of my son, I want to make sure that I have a relationship with this man because he's going to be in my son's life. So there's no need to be bad. And like we talk about a lot of things, and even when it gets crazy where he's like, hey, I'm gonna have to discipline your son, he lets me know. He gives me that respect, and I'm like, hey man, you're the one that has him 24/7. I just have him whenever I get to see him. So do what you got to do. I appreciate you letting me know, but you still have to raise him. He's in under your roof, but it still shows a great amount of respect that I appreciate. So I'm very blessed. I give it to the 2 of them because they're the ones that have made it that way by trusting me, by forgiving me, and by understanding that the most important thing is our children.
Yeah.
Hey, so you brought up talking to young sailors, right? And I can't, well, honestly, I can't hang anything for too much longer, but I can't hang on this one too long, man. But we think we've been through some shit, right? And then you talk to these young sailors, man, and they got some stories, man. One of my sailors' house burned up in a fire, and his mom was living in the house. She didn't pass away. She lives in the house though, so he's rebuilding the house as she's moving from room to room or something like that. As he's taking his money he get from being in the Navy and sending it back home. And it's one of the best sellers I know. Like he's killing it, But like every seller had, because when I first got to my carrier, I sat down with all my sellers and had like personal conversations. Not one, I think it was only one of them who was like, Senior, my life was great, but boom. Everybody else had a story. Didn't really have their parents. This happened. Like things that, when I first came in the Navy, I was from Philly. That was my struggle. I'm from Philly, man. Like listening to these sailors, Middle America, wherever they from, it's like, My mom is addicted to opioids. But I'm like, damn, yo, like life, you know. And I say that because you said you talk to a lot of young sellers, and I already know we got some resilient sellers resilient young sellers based off of what they had to go through before they even joined.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's just one of the things that, you know, I highlighted. And I want to applaud you for sitting, and you probably don't want the applause, but it ain't a lot of people out there having these conversations with these young sellers that need to be had. But that ain't the reason I'm applauding, because let's let the class happen. Right? You catch a master chief in the Navy that's still hungry to go get some training. You knew where I was going to?
I knew where you were going.
Hungry to go get some training. Come on, let's hear it again, man. You have to clap it up for a master chief.
You really
that's
do.
Close. That's like, yo, I got 2 years left in my career. Let me go TAD to a training to learn something. And then this not for me as a civilian. This ain't for me to get more money. After I learn this, I'm going to go back into the fleet and I'm going to go do God's work with this information. Man, I got to commend you for that, bro.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. I honestly, look, it fell in my lap. So I'll start with that, right? Like,
yeah.
Again, I've been very blessed, man. Like every time I think about it, like I've been very blessed of like having people or something happened that I might think that it was bad, and then something great like happened in my lap. And this was, I got to 10th Fleet in early May. The results came out. I made Master Chief. Thankfully, it wasn't the new system, so I was able to pick it up right away. And I sat down with my CMC, and he started talking about warrior toughness. I haven't heard anything about it, warrior toughness, until that moment. And I'm like, warrior toughness? What are we talking about here? And then he's like, he explained it, and he's like, I'm the one that goes, but I'm the main Master Chief. I'm always with a 3-star, so I'm busy as it is. And then he sees my bio. He's like, you're in the cold. And we start talking about it. He's like, man, you're the perfect person, you know, in the sense of like the warrior that comes in. And so I was like, I go to the class. Like I tell myself all the time, take every opportunity. So I'm the same. I don't care. Like I plan to do IT when I get out. But if you send me to a school about, I don't know, fixing something in a car, I know I'm not going to do that later. I still go. Like it's something new. It's something that could be in my toolbox. So I went with an open mind. And then once I was in the class and I understood what they were talking about, like the warrior mindset of you know, committing to something, the preparation, executing, and then reflecting, and how everything we do, everything has that evolution. I'll give you a quick example. Brushing your teeth. You got to be committed to brushing your teeth. You got to be prepared by buying a true brush and a toothpaste and floss. You got to execute. Some of us brush our teeth for a minute plus, other only 10 seconds, to each his own. Then you reflect, because when you go to the dentist, he or she will tell you if you're doing it right, and then you go and do it again. Like it could be that simple, right? Yet we have to do that. So I embraced it. And then what I really have love about doing, and speaking about warrior toughness, is talking to sailors and getting to understand the struggles that they deal with, right? Their struggles, it's a lot different than my struggles, right? Yet they're just as important as mine, right? Like what I might feel like is minor, I got to understand that might be so major to them, right? Because as we have spoken about, your background has a lot of effect on who you are. I went through a lot before even the Navy. So by the time I went to the Navy, like that's why the cold was not as impactful at the moment. Like I was still able to function where other people completely shut down, because I seen dead people before the cold. I seen casualty. I've seen things. So like seeing a dead body when the cold happened was not the first time, right? That doesn't make me that I'm more resilient than someone else. I just simply had the experience before, right? So as I go and talk to sailors and talk to leaders, I'm able to talk about how warrior toughness is really building that resiliency by making you the best person that you could be. It's not the best sailor. I want you to be the best person, because when you are the best person that you could be, then you become the best sailor that you could be, and then the best sailor for the mission. But it has to start with you as a person, right? And I love that. I love trying to give sailors hope by giving them tools, by showing them about experiences, by talking about sea stories and about talking about IT1 Blasso, about talking about life, talking about my failures, right? And then just the joy that I get from that, and understanding and the importance that it is to build resiliency, and trying to look at things from the preventive. A lot of our tools that we had for a long time has been what happened after the DUI, or what happens after mass,
reactive,
or what happens after you fail a PRT. This is one of those programs that are like, if you talk about it, I don't want to call it a program. This is one of the culture things that we need to put it into, that if you start taking care of yourself, your mind, body, and soul, if you start using goal settings to really attach the soul goal, because I talk about all the time, a goal without steps is a wish. So goal, time management, time rehearsal, mindfulness. When you start doing those little things for different endeavors in your life, you're able to work on your mind, on your soul, and your body, and then you wake up a little more refreshed because you took care of your sleep. You drink some water. You're able to be in that meeting with your mind more clear because you went and worked out in the morning. You took care of that part of your body. You know what I mean? Like, and so when we start doing it beforehand, like I'm trying to tell you these things, then you're able to take care of yourself and then others to be the best person, not to be, a superstar every single day. It's to be able to provide the best you every day. And that's going to change too, which I always talk about the class. Nobody's going to be at 100 every single day. You either lying or you faking it, or it's just not feasible. But what I want is that if all you got to give me is 50%, that is the best 50% of you today. I'll carry the other 50 today. Tomorrow, you might be able to give me 70, and now I give you 70 as well. You know what I mean? And we're able to understand each other and work to get us, all of us, to that peak performance, to be the best individual that we could be. So I love warrior toughness. I was just in a conference about culture of excellence for the last 3 days. And warrior toughness was talked about a lot. And I'm a firm believer that what we need to do is, and also Navy coaching, that we need to bring those to commands, right? Because right now, not every command has a warrior toughness coordinator, or they've been to the NEC. That's one. Two, even if you do get someone, let's say your command is 300 people, you're only going to have one person that's going to have to try to teach you this. Since most command are not going to send 20 people to school, you don't have the money, you don't have the time. We need a training team that comes on board the ship and just teaches for a week. And it just inculcate that to the command. And then how we could put it to the different programs. Hey, can we do breathing before the PRT so we could calm down? Can we do goal settings as a division to ensure that we meet our goals, and how we're going to get there? Can we do one thing that I've seen in a couple commands is because we need it's called positive statements, right? And I had two commands that took this idea where, the division itself give each other BZs every Friday. By every Friday, it's a jar, and then you put little notes, and the BZs are amongst each other. It's not about another. There could be someone that comes to your shop and puts it in there, but you want hey, Damon, he did this for me. He brought me lunch, or she helped me with, I don't know, a study for this. And you get to know each other, and then you give each other that those little kudos. And that might seem corny, or it might seem like it's not a big deal. And I can tell you, because there's a division that did it from a command that I went to visit, and the chief told me that in the first 2 weeks, there maybe was one piece of paper. That's it. By the third week, there was 3 or 4. Yeah. And then by the 5th week, there was at least 5 every week of just people giving kudos to each other. And just anything minimal, right? Like it could just simply be like, I forgot my plastic fork to eat my food and you just gave me one, or you just found one for me, right? But you wanted to give me a shout out because you took care. And then just that cohesiveness is the things that will get us to be better, to be able to talk about the difficult things. Because if we could talk about the little things and be open about that, that's how I can open up, because I know you. I know that you have a child, or you have 2 kids, or whatever. And we need more of that. So I love Warrior Toughness. I could do that for the rest of my career if I could.
Hey, I got one last question.
Yep.
That's great, because we could talk about Warrior Toughness forever. We might have to have you back on to talk about Warrior Toughness.
Warrior Toughness.
My last question is, question before the question. You watch movies?
I do.
Okay. All right. So last question from me. If it was a movie about your life, right? First part of the question is, what would be the genre?
Okay. Oh man, I think because of like the craziness that it is, there will have to be like some involvement of like fiction to it.
Yeah,
and
I think,
and just because it's just so wild, a lot of the things, right? That like, it will have to be like that could really, him being with 6 women at in 1 week like that. That's not true. Like we need to have like something different or something. I don't know. It'll just be. It wouldn't be something that like a lot of people will believe. So I hope that if a writer ever does that, they'll have to like really have a really good commercials to get people to watch the movie.
I see dramedy, right? Half drama, some comedy, right? Dark drama with some dark comedy, right?
Yes.
What would be the rating?
Oh, for sure, gotta be R. At the very least, if you're gonna tell the truth, like the whole story, and like to without any censorship. Oh yeah, it has to be. Maybe there would even be, what is the next one of the
NC-17, NC, like NC. I think it's
like an NR because there's a lot of nudity.
Yeah,
like you're gonna have to throw, go to that scale, and it's because even the things that don't have nothing to do with sexuality, they're just a lot, right? Like they could be traumatizing. I mean, think about me trying to stab my mom's stomach when she was pregnant.
Yeah,
as a 7-year-old, right? Like,
that's the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, like how angry. Yeah, like
right,
how
that
angry
is.
you have to be the child.
Yeah, that's the intro to the movie.
I was about to say that's the intro. That's the intro. That's the intro.
Who are the actors?
Oh, so this is gonna throw me back because they used to say that I look like him. I don't think I do. And he's not an actor. I don't think he's acted too much, but he used to model Tyson Beckford.
Okay, so Tyson's playing you.
Yeah, we have to teach him about being an actor, but I feel like he will have to be. It will have to be me. That's the closest. Because I would like someone that would be like. I don't want. You know how some movies they be having someone that don't look anything like the guy, like like Tom Cruise be playing me and shit. Like, come on, man. Like, just because he's a good actor. Nah. I'd rather have someone that's gonna look like me or that I look like him. So I'll say him. Although I don't think he has any acting skills.
Okay. Hey, look. It's funny. I got 4 minutes left on my camera. My camera about to go. Hey, for the listeners, y'all hear so much about her. My mom, she's here. I got to hang with her for a little bit. Hey, Amaury, hanging with you is always great, man. I honestly don't think this is the last time you're going to be on.
Right.
If you ever willing to come back on, I would love to invite you back, to the show. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your story. As honest, raw, unfiltered as it is, I appreciate it all. It's my favorite book of the year so far. And it started a good streak of books for me because I was on a downslope, just some shitty books. So yours kind of re-injected some good books for me. So thanks. I'm happy that you shared your time with us. And I appreciate it, man. So continue to inspire make people laugh, create conversations, and do everything that you do, man. I appreciate you, man. So thanks.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely. Like, this is my first time meeting you, but I felt like I already knew you because they've talked about you so much. There's no lie. They talk about you a lot. And so when I met the book, you know, you met that expectation of that I already had. And so I wish that, you know, I knew you when I was in, because I feel like, I mean, you're still inspiring to me now, even though I'm retired. I'm even thinking about things like, you know, that I can kind of, you know, instill and work when I go back. But I think it's great what you're doing, especially with the warrior toughness. I was an LN, and so I see how we, you know, out-process a lot of sailors due to mental health. And so the strength of our Navy, you know, we lose a lot of them, you know, and so I think that it's amazing what you're doing. And I agree, like, we need to multiply, clone, whatever we got to do to get more people out there that can have these real life, like, dead ass serious conversations, not the, you know, I'm the chief, so I have to look perfect. You know, I don't want to put my skeletons out there. I've never seen someone put all of their shit on the table the way that you put yours. And that takes a lot of courage to do. Especially, I guess you're a mass chief now. You're like, fuck it. But it seems like you've been doing that though. And so that just goes a lot to, you know, to your character.
Well, I want to say thank you for having me, and I'll be more than, you know, it'll be a pleasure to come back. Thank you for taking the time to reading the book, right? And you know, looking at all the different things that comes with it, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. Mm-hmm. And keep doing what you guys are doing, right? Because you guys are giving a voice to every level. You guys have had any, like, rank and whatever expertise is not a thing here. It's just simply let's get conversations. So continue to do that. I love, you know, looking at the podcast, and I love hearing the different perspectives. And I just want to leave some sort of legacy, that in the sense of, like, what it is to, you know, care about people, right? And trying to bring out the best for myself in the sense of, like, me being better. And then for others, I want someone to look at me how I look at IT1 Plus one day. Mm-hmm. So I hope that I can continue to do that.
Thank you, man. Hey, listeners, on our next episode featuring Amaury, we're going to talk about how the toxic girlfriend gets orders to the same ship as you. Stay tuned for the next episode of Permission to Speak Freely with Amaury.
Most importantly, go get the book.